Hi. Can you guys hear me? Wait a minute. Testing that. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay, yes. And mute there. And I need to make sure people on YouTube can hear me as well. What is this? Yeah. Let me lower this down. I can lower that. Testing. Hi, Miss G. Hi, Aza. Oh, it's Aza. I hope I'm saying it right. I'm waiting for the judge. It's going to be a minute before he come up. Actually, let me call him because this is his first. Okay, TJ, you can hear me. Thank you. This is his first Twitter Space of 2024, and it's every Tuesday. And I tried calling him before, but he couldn't hear me. Well, I didn't hear anything. Hello. Yeah. Can hear me, right?
I can hear you, but you were interrupting me finishing up the revision of that audition tape. So I had to finish.
I told you 7 p.m. So
I know. So I'm on.
You on Twitter?
I think I'm on.
No, you didn't click. You got to come on the Twitter Space. I sent you the link. Huh? Hello?
Yeah.
Are you logging on now?
Yeah, I'm here to start listening.
Okay, well, I gotta hang. Well, you gotta hang. I'm gonna hang up. I'm gonna hang up so you can come on. Oh my God. Oh, here he goes. Invite the co-host. Okay, I just sent you an invite the co-host. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? You can unmute, Judge.
How come I can see you? I thought you couldn't do this on Twitter Space.
What do you mean?
I can see you.
What do you mean you can see me where? Because my hair not done, honey. Where you can see me at?
Oh, I guess it's just a still picture.
Yeah.
You're sitting next to some guy with a shaved head.
Who?
I don't know.
It's me?
Yes, you.
What are you talking about?
I'll take a screenshot. Send it to you.
What you looking at? Take a screenshot, text it to me. And I asked you earlier to tweet out the space. You didn't.
Well, I was trying to do this audition thing.
Yeah, but we got to come into 2024 correct.
I know, but anyway, slight oversight. Okay, here.
Can you retweet it, even though people can still see that you're on? You said you texted it to me?
Yeah, I text you the picture. Well, hold on. Let me make sure I text you the bloody doggone picture.
Mm-hmm.
You're moving, so I thought it was live, but I see now it says you New Year's love guide, what not to do in 2024.
Uh-huh.
I was looking at it, came on my iPad that I was using as a prop. Okay, so I'm good to go.
Okay.
I will retweet what you have here. Let's see. Retweet. Repost.
So while you're doing that, let me just set the room. So happy New Year to everybody. First Twitter space of Judge Joe Brown in 2024. And today, sometimes I may have an evergreen topic, or we may talk about what's trending and what is trending. Claudine Gay, she resigned as president of Harvard University. She is the shortest tenure president in history, 6 months and 4 days or something like that. And also you can see in the header here, The Color Purple. I went to see The Color Purple, the musical movie, last week Friday, because I wanted to see it for myself before I could even talk about it. I saw the original many years ago when I was much younger. I did not see the musical on Broadway, but this is basically the musical on Broadway put onto film. And I'm asking the question, the Color Purple effects on Black culture, because it did. It is. Me personally, I think it was a reprogramming, not in a good way, of how we see Black people today, even though that is a time period starting in the 20s, going into the 40s, making Black men look subservient or mean and violent against women. Of course, Suge and Celie had some type of romance or whatever, and this was in the original, and then of course it's in this one. I walked away saying maybe it was subliminally about Gil and Oprah. We could touch on that as well. But I do want to get everybody's thoughts. If you've seen the movie on the new Color Purple musical movie, and then even if you saw the original, I want your take on it as well. The original is priceless. No one can't top that. But it was a lot of great talent in this new one. And I feel as though Fantasia, Danielle Brooks, even Haley, they deserve awards, especially Fantasia and Danielle. They did a really good job, even Taraji, right? But nothing cannot beat the original. And the original never won any awards. However,
the original, what are we talking about? Color Purple?
The original of The Color Purple. So, of course, we're going to be talking about
it because I fell asleep the 3 times I was made to go see it by a girlfriend.
Wait, 1 second. All right, 1 second. Because that's part of the title that I put in the title. It says The Color Purple Effects on Black Culture. And then, of course, Claudine Gay resigns. She was the president of Harvard. And there's other things going on in the news that, of course, you may want to bring up, Judge, or anybody else want to request to come up to mention or ask or comment on that we talk about. All right. With that said, I guess where should we start? Claudine or The Color Purple? Ciao.
You can start anywhere you want. I never could see more than 10, 15 minutes with Color Purple before I got completely disgusted. I always took it as an anti-man diatribe. And I think 3 different dates I went to go see it because my date wanted to go see it, but I fell asleep in 5 minutes on one. She got mad because I did. Another one, I went, got popcorn and managed to stay gone for 45 minutes because I didn't want to see it. And the other one, I just found another show to go in and look at. And I hate musicals anyway, so what I thought was a lousy movie was not going to see me perched in the audience listening to them warble away with song.
Well,
don't like musicals.
Yeah, well, I don't really like musicals, sort of say, into movies, but this was a good musical. Like there were a lot of talking. It wasn't as much music that I was hoping that it was not going to be. It was a lot of talking. It was more talking than singing. However, you're talking about the South in the 20s through the 40s. They did not touch on that deep-rooted gospel, type of music like the original captured. Certain things wasn't captured, and I get it. And this is one of the things, stop doing remakes of classics. Just let it be what it is. Whether people liked it or not, let the classic be the classic. However, Sophia back then, played by Oprah, and Sophia now, played by Danielle Brooks. The one of the reasons why I dislike Color Purple now, and I really couldn't catch on it back then because I was young, they didn't have an in-between. They either had the Black man subservient to his wife, bringing her tea. She's saying, here, take this baby. I have company, and bring us some tea. He brings the tea, and she throws it in the swamp saying, it's too cold, blah, blah, blah. And he's building her a house, and she said, well, you're doing it wrong. And her friends and sisters or whoever come and finish building a house. Too manly. So they had the Black man looking either subservient, simp, beta, and then mean, disrespectful, and violent towards women. Nothing in between. And we're talking about an era where hanging, burning of crosses, Jim Crow, but you had, hardworking Black men, strong family, masculine manhood, or whatever, right? And it didn't touch on none of that as far as representation for men, for Black men. And it fell flat again with that.
What you talking about? Color Purple, the musical?
The musical, yes. Even in our original, Harpo was subservient and Mr. was Mr. But this one, the 2023, just heightened it even more. And I think because it is a reprogramming, they want to reprogram the young people, because the young people today, the Gen Zs and even the millennials, they're not going to go see the original Color Purple. So it's a reprogramming of how you see Black culture historically and present. And that's a problem.
Okay.
All right. So Twizzler requested, I'll bring him up.
The thing with the dean, I'm perturbed that she concedes to the plagiarism thing, but I don't know if she did or did not, but she seems to be conceding to the accusation. And the other thing is, when you get to that, I've encountered plagiarism myself. A former roommate of mine sent me a workup, and I said, I recognize that. He said, you ought to. You and I and several professors and other Black students, back in 1967, we submitted it as a prospectus for a Black history course. I said, yeah, I remember now, Professor so-and-so and so-and-so. He said, let me send you something else. And I got that. I said, this is plagiarized, but they flipped the script on this from us trying to get something that was generating enthusiasm and anger that would result in dedication to doing something about the situation. This is just a whining excuse and blame somebody else and lapse into somebody trying to be made to feel guilty when we didn't give a damn whether somebody felt guilty or not. We were after results. And it turned out to be a certain professor who's at UCLA now. He'd taken a few words out of what we submitted way back in 1967. And it is known today as the prospectus for critical race theory, which in the tone and the intent is entirely different, but otherwise a lot of it is similar. So some of the words are identical. Phrasing. So it's not that it doesn't happen in academia. And then they have this thing in academia called publish or perish. In other words, if you want to stay on the faculty, you got to write something and it's got to be published, even if you have to pay for it yourself. And the books are $90 a piece, which a lot of times, since the professor doesn't write too well, aren't worth the paper that is written on. But they publish and they will go around and they will look back at stuff now. If it's 15, 20, 25, 30, 40 years in the past, they assume nobody is familiar with it, which they're not. So, people don't look into history these days. They make up history. Revisionist history. And I'm surprised, but what I'm looking at right now is almost a concession to the accusation.
Yeah, well, I think she shouldn't have resigned. I don't think none of them should have, because it was the president of University of Penn that resigned first. All of them were being accused of anti-Semitism for allowing Palestinian protests on campus. And they have a right.
What happened to these people? Everybody protested, from the Klan to Students for a Democratic Society, SDS, to the Brown Berets, to the Black Panther Party, to the Black student unions, to everybody protested. Anti-war, you name it. Now everybody's so damn delicate they can't stand any dissent from their particular belief system. What
Mhm.
is that?
Right. So that's what we're going to talk about. If anybody want to mention Epstein, Hamas, listen, it's a whole list on that Epstein list. I really don't give a damn unless you're telling me this person did this, they solicited this. I really don't care who on that list because he was rich and famous, and they always invite famous people to come on their island or their yacht or fly or use their private jets. I want to see the evidence that Prince Andrew solicited whatever. Until then, I don't care about that list. But if y'all want to mention it, please do. But these are the two main topics and anything else you want to talk about. So I
By
see.
the way, there are quite a number of women or female celebrities on that list as well.
Yeah, honey, I saw Beyonce name and I said, don't play with me because I'm part of the Beehive. Don't play with me. And it's like
Naomi Campbell too with her fine self on there.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, they're on the list of what? Oh, of a flight log. So what? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what wealthy people do. They lend out.
The flight only went one place to that island, and there was only one occupant of that island.
No, it doesn't know. If you use the plane, that doesn't mean they went to the island. You could use it for whatever. Like, people loan out their private jets.
Well, I mean, that may be the case, except they're alleging that this is showing the itinerary layout.
Beyonce was vacationing. She wasn't doing none of that deviant stuff.
Well, I didn't know she was, but I mean, innocent till proven guilty. But interesting that they hung out with that person. See, be careful who you hang out with. You get judged by the company you keep.
But that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you don't know what people are into. So
that's true too. And if you're a celebrity, anybody can come up and take a picture with you. But when they pay your plane fare, that gets a little bit, why are they doing this? You know, I always said, no, I tell you what, unless we have business that has to do with one thing or another that can be put down for IRS, I'm not letting you pay for me.
And then too, and it's like, if you're not going to sit up here and expose the people that's in Congress, you know, at the FBI or the CIA, I don't care, because that rabbit hole goes deep. I don't want to see. I don't care about the celebrities. I want the people.
Anybody? You know,
I gotta pull up the list. And why do people? They're so dramatic. One person posted the list and they have like this spooky music in the background. Like, it is not. No, it's no. Stop. Well, and then the names, it was already mentioned before.
Somebody on X posted today. They've got the pictures.
Oh, well. All right. Twizzler is.
I don't know. It's not my thing. It's celebrity gossip. But in this case, it deals with accusations of pedophilia.
Wait, real quick. Before I go to Twizzler, I want to ask you, Judge, and anybody want to request to come up, please do so. Have you ran into Epstein when you were in Hollywood?
Nope, I did not. I didn't hang with that crowd. I wasn't that important, even though I had the #1 and #2 syndicated show. So, you know, I wasn't.
I mean, have you seen him? Did you ever see him in passing at award shows?
In passing. But as I said, ordinary gossip, I don't like. Celebrity gossip, I detest. But I locked up a lot of pedophiles. And I always tried to give them as much time as the sentencing guidelines allowed me to give them. And one of the only 4 times I got partially reversed in 10 years was for giving a pedophile too much time. So the state Supreme Court knocked 5 years off the sentence. Somebody sodomized an 11-year-old handicapped stepson.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right, I want to go to Twizzler. He's requested to speak. And like I said, anybody want to request to come up to talk about The Color Purple, Claudine Gay, Epstein, Hamas, or anything in the news? Go ahead, Twizzler.
Hey, shout out to the host. Happy New Year's to you.
Happy New Year's.
And it's Twizzler, by the way. Hey, Judge, how you doing, young man? How you feeling?
Wait. Twizzler. It's Twizzler, right?
It's Twizzo.
Oh, Twizzo.
It's no problem, though. It's all good. I know what you mean. How you doing, young man? How you feeling these days?
I'm feeling fine, sir.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I want to get your opinions on the color purple thing, because you are a mature man, how my dad would be if he was alive. So I remember when I first watched it with him, he was kind of mad about it, but then he was kind of familiar with it because, as he said, from his time, that's how it was. But what he was saying was they made it extra on how they always portrayed the black man as violent.
Yeah,
Because I know in my time growing up in the late, I was born in the late 70s, 74. I come from, my dad was in the movie The Mac. So they always portrayed black men in those times were violent. And at Ronald Reagan time, bed
you mean
bucks who always
Max
lived off the
Jr.
woman.
in the
Yeah,
Mac?
yeah. Yeah, my dad was in that movie. His group, he was in a singing group called the Ballads. And they
I'm
was in
I'm
there
I'm
singing.
familiar.
They
I'm familiar with that group. Max Jr.
yeah.
went to the John Muir Junior High School at the same time I did.
Hmm.
Interesting. Anyway, yeah, I was familiar with a lot of what was going on back then. I mean, I had relatives who had crosses burned in their yard or on their property. We had to put up with it even in Los Angeles. They had places that had signs, no colored allowed, no Jews allowed, no Irish allowed, no Mexicans allowed. Yeah, a lot of stuff went on that was interesting, like that. Visit relatives in the South, and you certainly saw it then. I was 5 years old. We were going past what would be later known as a sundown town. We were too early. Some clowns took 3 shots at the car I was riding in. They were shooting at my dad. They didn't lead him far enough, and the bullet hit. First one hit through the passenger door on the driver's side, and I had a Coca-Cola bottle on my knee I was holding from my mother while she was fishing for something in the glove compartment. The bullet hit the bottle and shattered it, and I got Coke all over my knee, and I was more worried about my mother being pissed off with her Coke gone. I knew it was a gunshot. I mean, after the thing hit, I heard the sound, but the old man had been in the war, and I loved hearing his war recount, so it was what it was. They fired 2 more shots that hit the car, but they hit the trunk. So we had to get that repaired. When we got where we were going, we were coming from Tuskegee Institute, driving to Jackson, Tennessee to visit relatives of my mother. So was what it was. But yeah,
Yes, I used
like
to hear them stories.
stuff
I used
like
to hear
that
them
happened,
stories.
So yeah, it was violent. That green book that they had in Lovecraft Country, gentleman that played the lead in that seems to have gotten in some trouble in New York. Um, there's an appeal, so before I comment on that, I'll see what happens with the appeal. But anyway, they were talking about the Green Book. We called it the Green Book because Sinclair Oil, that had a green dinosaur as their emblem, put the book out. I think it was 50 cents. And my old man bought one, and it gave you addresses and phone numbers of hotels, motels, and if none were available, private homes that would put the colored up when you were traveling, and places where you could eat without having to order out the back door, which my old man refused to do. Now, everybody carried a picnic basket with a lot of fried chicken in it, so that would carry on for 2 or 3 days, and you carried on the front bumper so it would stay cool, a canvas water bag, and everybody had 1 or 2 bedpans, and you did not travel on the highways in broad daylight until you got within 20 miles or so of where you were going. And you slept during the day, and if you couldn't find a motel, you stopped some laborers or farm hands and asked them where it was cool to hide out, and they'd tell you. And you'd hide up in the trees and sleep for the day. Your mom would stay awake, dad would take a nap, dad would stay awake, she'd take a nap, keep a watch out so you didn't get snuck up on, because it wasn't safe to be where you are. Now, when you got within 20 miles of where you were going, you can drive it. Like, hey, Bob, what you doing with this here car? Where are you going, Bob? You gonna be saying, oh, Biz Wiley? Oh, I know him. He's a good colored man. Married to Mary Wiley. Yeah, she used to take care of my grandmama. Sure did. Well, I tell you what, Trooper Anderson gonna pull you over probably another 5 or 6 miles up there. You tell Anderson that you saw Trooper Johnson, and he said it's okay, and here's the code word. Now that you come from good colored folk. Go on down there and y'all have time. Just tell Trooper Johnson I already cleared you. And that's the way it used to be. So, by the way, when people talk about segregation was a good thing, there's a difference between trying to separate yourself out and getting treated like you were a dog. You've seen these signs in the park that says no dogs allowed or dogs must be on leash. Well, let's take another place, Los Angeles, California, Inglewood, down in the hood. Back when black folk, Negroes, colored folk did not travel through Inglewood after dark without a pass from somebody that you worked for. Now, that's that thing like dogs must be on a leash. All colored must be accounted for by somebody they work for. See, people look at Los Angeles and now Inglewood is the hood, but it wasn't like that. So America has changed a hell of a lot. I see people whining about white supremacy. You should have seen it when it was back in the 50s, early 50s, late 50s, early 60s. It was not pleasant. Things are not like they used to be. White folk are scared of black folk now. Back then, they kind of looked at you like you were dogs.
I be trying to tell the sisters that now, like Judge, like sisters get mad when they say a man want them in the house barefoot and stuff like that, and I let them know that it's not that he wants you in the house to be barefooted, stuck, and pregnant. He wanted you in the house to be safe because as late as the early '80s, when a white man pulled up on her, he get to have his way with her, and it was nothing that he or anybody else could do. She couldn't
Yeah.
call police for rape. She couldn't call police for nothing. And I know, like in the early times, like what we talking about, if a black woman got caught by herself, she was fresh meat. So
Well,
that's why when we black men be like, you know, we would like to keep an eye on you. We like for you to be in the house and know where you safe. That's what it's for, you know, because as I said, as late as the '80s, if a black woman, even at work, black women used to get harassed at work, raped, and all kind of bad stuff happened to them. So I try to tell them that, you know,
well,
sometimes they hear me and sometimes they don't.
I'm glad you brought that up. Back in the 1970s, occasionally when I'd have to get outside of Memphis, I'm from Los Angeles, grew up in LA, picked the accent up when I got to Memphis 50 years ago. But I remember when I first started practicing back in the 70s, and I'd have to go interview a witness or somebody that lived up country in one of the rural counties. You'd go in there and everybody in the family except one kid might look the same. And the one kid looks like he's almost white. And when you interview that person who's a witness to something, you find out what happened. She had left her cleaning job and it was Friday night. She had to stay late because the people had a party and she was on the way home. And 5 white boys driving in their Ford pickup or whatever, riding in the back, they grabbed her, snatched her, and raped her. So you had a whole lot of families that had somebody that was a product of black woman getting raped by a white person. And they just went ahead and raised them. I mean, that was just reality. It went on, and some of these people just don't get it. They got this idea like, yeah, well, I have a right to be free from. Yeah, you do, but that's why they have criminal courts, and why before black folk got treated halfway decently in criminal court, you know, you were on your own. If they saw you, you know, ain't nobody gonna bother somebody, some white kid. They just having fun. brighten up the race for you people. You know you likes them light skinned ones anyways, particularly if it's a gal, she can make money for you.
Mm.
That's the way they used to
I'm
talk.
sorry. I want to go to Professor Allen. You can stay up. It's Twizzler. Twizzly.
It's Twizzo. It's
Well, why you don't have the O? You have
Twizzo.
LE.
It's
Twizzo.
pronounced like that. Yes,
Oh,
Twizzo,
okay.
official as a
Twizzo.
referee's whistle. I'm from Oakland, California. That's why. You know,
Oh,
you
okay,
know how
okay.
Snoop Dogg say for shizzle. I'm Twizzle.
Oh,
You know,
okay, I get it. All right.
it's all good. Go ahead. I'm listening. Hey, Judge. Hey, have a good one, Judge. I'm
Well,
here for
yeah,
you,
Can you hear
man.
me?
speaking of Snoop Dogg, I
Yeah,
knew
1
his
second,
mother.
Professor.
She was a fine woman. She and I worked on some projects 20 years ago to do neighborhood improvement. Very
right.
fine woman. She's passed on now, but she was a very nice woman.
Professor Allen. Did I say all right? What happened? He dropped down. Professor Allen. You can unmute.
Off earlier. I'm sorry. Good evening to the room. My name is Alon. I'm
Alon,
no,
I'm
you're
sorry.
good. You're good.
Alon.
You're good. I've been called Alan most of my life. Judge, I met you at a school years ago. I'm down with Henry Arthur Callis and them, if you know what I mean. But
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. 1906 and
all
all
that.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I'm a scholar, adjunct professor at Lemoyne. I'm addressing the room. It says the effects of color purple and effects of Black culture. I recently published a book for Black history, a workbook for kids in the African American family. If y'all are interested, you can type on my webpage on my Twitter page. It has a link to it. But my point is, I did some research on educational psychology and motivational factors, and I noticed that our children are programmed by certain paradigms within the books and the culture. So back to the color purple. The color purple set up family dynamics in America that really don't really exist. I mean, what I mean by that is the whole character of Mister, a rich, powerful Black male, is, from my experience as a African American from Alabama, that doesn't, where does that exist? So I just kind of view the color purple as a kind of like a psychological war operation on our people to kind of as social conditioning. Same thing with the books. I had when I met you, Judge, one of my students told me, she said, I taught history at the time. I do now, but back then I taught 7th grade history. And one of my students was like, Mr. Hill, I don't care about history. And I said, she was an honor student. I said, why don't you care about history? And she said, because I don't see myself in this book. And I really listened to her. And I went home and looked through the book. And the book didn't show African Americans in a powerful light. It showed, Europeans, and talked about Henry VIII and how powerful he was, and talked about Genghis Khan and how powerful he was. And when it got to a section on African Americans and Native Americans, it was just like, oh, well, they cook and they dance. And I was like, doggone it, this little girl is right. The books are programming her to, in my opinion, to be used, to be a lower caste. So and I think that kind of relates to Dr. Claudine Gay. I think that education is a hot topic right now, and there's an attack on Black history and Black scholars, and that's my field of expertise, and I see it head on every day. On that, I'm gonna land my plane.
Well, you're at Lemoyne. You've got a new dean of admissions over there, Dean Thunder.
Well, I'm adjunct, so I'm not not full time, but yeah.
Yeah, well, you teach there, adjunct. I've been an adjunct professor too out at Memphis State's law school a time or two. Good for you. But you got a new dean, and I'd encourage people to go investigate Lemoyne. I know a lot of folk in Memphis that graduated from Lemoyne. Not as many as there used to be, but it is what it is. But I'll tell you something that I have encountered over the last 50 years here. I was just thinking about it when you were talking. And I can think of at least 10, maybe 12 families where somebody is in the family is very proud of the fact that grandmama had an affair with the white plantation owner in a sharecropping situation, and that 2 or 3 of her children were not born to granddaddy, but to the sharecropper. I'm not the sharecropper, but to the property owner. And I always said, you ought to be ashamed of that, but they're proud of it because they're the ones in the family that have the long, wavy, curly hair, let's say, or they're high bright, or they got the green, gray eyes. And there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And I know some of the people that were in Color Purple personally. And let me just say this. I never saw the complete movie. I couldn't stand watching it because it filled me with too much anger. And I'm angry enough as it is. And it struck me from the very first few minutes of watching it, which I saw several times, is just an anti-man thing, which, considering the history of what is transpired in Hollywood, is not surprising. They tend to use black people as guinea pigs to test out an idea. And the idea is that men are somehow or another evil or generally toxic, and that they're good for nothing. Either they are bad because they exploit somebody, or they're useless because they won't stand up to somebody. And that is too close to a reality that used to exist. It still is in a way. And I find that, like on X, or formerly Twitter, usually the ones that are so off into trying to call somebody a coon, when you really get into reading what they post, they're that kind that hung their heads and shuffled their feet and crumpled up their hats and couldn't look a white man in the eye. And I don't think much of that kind, but they like to throw the words around, and maybe somebody's not telling them to be passive, but merely pointing out what the landscape looks like and what pitfalls and traps you're going to run into so you can navigate it and do something about it. But anyway, it is what it is.
I'm gonna agree with you, Judge, on the whole. I'm from Alabama, and Alabama. If you look at my profile picture, you know my family. We're all mixed up, not by our choice, but it's a shame that in our group we have people that are proud of essentially the rape that came from chattel slavery and Jim Crow, the Jim Crow South. That exists. That exists really bad in Alabama. The only place I've seen it worse than Alabama was in Louisiana. You got people so proud of, their forced heritage. But Judge, I went to Africa with some professors this summer. We went to Ghana on a trip to build a school. It wasn't in Ghana, it was in Hohoi. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's like a northern Ghana near Togo. And I talked to villagers, and I gathered some research, and I found out something very interesting when we went to Elmina Castle on the coast. I found out that the Portuguese at Elmina Slave Castle, the Portuguese would intentionally rape our sisters to create a mixed race baby to sow division. I didn't know that. I was taught that happened exclusively happened in the United States, but it happened at the slave castle in Ghana. The Portuguese would rape the sisters to create a mixed baby. Why would they do that? They would do that. They would sell the mixed baby at a higher price, and the mixed children even had their own boat. You know what I'm saying? But they would send the mixed babies to the island of the West Indies, or to the Americas, with the intent of sowing divisions among the our darker brothers and sisters. So I just thought that was interesting that we were kind of programmed before we even left the coast. It's a mess.
Yeah, that's real.
Mhm.
Sir Walter
oh.
Raleigh, North Carolina. Sir Francis Drake, commander of Queen Elizabeth's Navy. They had letters of marque, which meant they could be pirates without getting hung. And what they did is they captured these Spanish slave ships, and they would be filled with, as the Spaniards and the Portuguese, that's from El Andalus or the Iberian Peninsula, they would be filled with Negroes. So they'd take some of the slave ships and sneak into a Spanish port and sell them for below market value prices and create a fortune because they didn't have to go through paying for them as the middleman. And then they'd sometimes bring them to the English colonies and they'd use the same term that the Hispanics used or the Portuguese used. We have a shipload of Negroes for a cut rate price. That's how they got in there. And yeah, they do that. They would do that quite frequently.
I want to go to Immortal, and then I'm gonna go to Arkansas, and then X-Men. And anybody want to request to come up, please do so. We're talking about the color purple and the effects on Black culture it had or has on Black culture, and of course, Claudine Gay resigns as president of Harvard University, and anything else you may want to bring up or ask the judge. And I just want to say hi to Miss G. I see Dr. Mark. I saw a news total earlier, and everybody in the room. Hello, and hello to everybody on YouTube. And one more thing before I go to Immortal, I put the Judge Joe Brown barbecue sauce link in the Jumbotron and in the YouTube chat. So go and purchase you some barbecue sauce straight from Amazon. It's convenient. It's delicious. All right, Immortal. Got.
Oh, I appreciate it. So greetings to you, Dana, and greetings to the Honorable Judge Joe Brown, and everybody, all the family in the house. Greetings to everyone. So I'm going to try to touch real quick on a lot of them points y'all was making. So for the professor, I like the way Professor Allen H. pointed out the PSYOP, the psychological operations that's involved whenever you're talking about a major Hollywood production. There's no way. Back before the CIA was the CIA, I think they called it the OSS or something like that. Something like that. And they said that the media, television, movies, radio was they number one weapon of war. That's what they said. They said this is a great weapon of war. And you say, well, and what I'm telling you is that war and that psychological operation comes in two different forms. The first form that I've noticed is that they'll gaslight you. So you might get a production like Slave Play. So that's straight gaslighting. That's supposed to incense you. If you are a self-respecting person, you're supposed to feel a little indignant about that. But if you're not, then that's a gauge to let them know how far they can push you. So they'll gaslight you on some real open stuff. But then on the other hand, most of the time it's subliminal. They're working on your subliminal. It's something about the ability to bypass the conscious mind and influence the subconscious mind. That's the way you get people to think they have ideas that are not their own. So, Professor, I appreciate you pointing that out, that there's warfare. Anytime we're watching this stuff, understand there's warfare going on. And what I like is listening to Judge Joe Brown. And I listen because I hear people fighting back in the system. Don't think it's just everything's just white or black. No, it's all kind of pieces to this puzzle out here. And so you do have people who are on TV fighting back. So let me tell you what Judge Joe Brown put some game down on me. Judge Joe Brown say he didn't like a lot of the spin that they were putting on his show. And he started to notice something that he didn't like. So what he did is he broke it all the way down. And he wouldn't say anything except for what they need to put on the production. So he broke it down and said, okay, it's a 30-minute show. You got so many minutes of commercials. You need X amount of minutes of material. And I'm not going to give you nothing. There's nothing going to go on the cutting floor. Every word that I say, you're going to need every word. And that's it and that's all. And that's how I noticed why he has such a high quality program. So it is high quality things that you can watch out here, but you can believe people are fighting for it. And I'll make the next point short when we're talking about the Epstein Island. Listen, Epstein Island is like a crack house. It's the most, just imagine the most famous crack house in your city. It's been a crack house since it's been cracked, okay? So anybody going in or out of there, and I do mean anybody, they either buying some crack, they could be selling some crack, you know. So whoever's going in there, they're either buying somebody, or selling themselves, or all of the above, or any combination of the three. That's what's going on. So if you see Beyonce out there, feel sorry for her. She's a commodity. One of the most beautiful black women in America that you'll get to see, on a worldwide stage. And so she's a commodity to powerful men and women all over the world. And they might risk putting themselves in a little bit of position to be blackmailed if they could just sleep with Beyonce, right? So, and they feel powerful and kings and hundreds of millions of dollars. So yeah. So let's, I can appreciate the people. It's really not something you speak about in good company. We have to get together with the brigands and figure out how to make sure that this kind of stuff, like we do in the black community, that's one thing you don't see is a whole big human trafficking rings and child trafficking rings throughout the black community. It's too dangerous. It's too dangerous. Me and half my block over here crash out on you. We find out you're trying to sell children. So yeah, that's so much for Epstein Island. What else? If you ain't got no Judge Joe's Brown's all natural barbecue sauce with the seasoning in your kitchen, I'm wondering, do I want to eat any of your barbecue? I'm wondering, like, what is you cooking with? Everybody talk all that stuff. I don't know. I don't know. I ain't eating no white people potato salad. I'm sorry, white folks. I just ain't gonna do it. And I got to start seeing some Judge Joe Brown barbecue around some of these barbecue pits. Anyway, I appreciate y'all. Some other things I wanted to say, but I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna leave it at that. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Brother, Happy New Year. Thank you.
I can hear you.
Perfect.
Definitely Happy New Year to you, Judge. Happy New Year.
Was on point.
Yeah, thank you, Immortal. Happy New Year to you as well. I want to go to Arkansas, and then I'm gonna take a couple questions from YouTube, and then I'll go to X-Man.
Hey, be well, good people. Am I coming through okay?
Yes. Wait 1 second. Judge, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. Go ahead, Arkansas.
Yes, sir. I hear you.
Yeah, regarding The Color Purple, one of the things that I was disappointed in is the actual portrayal of the movie, portrayal of the book and the characters in the book in the movie. Now, I don't take offense to it because it is a story, and it is a story that is reflective of some people's experiences. Mister, for me, that's not uncharacteristic. A wealthy farmer in that time period. I mean, that's not uncommon because that's reflective of my own story with my grandfather, my great uncles in this. That was their life of being successful and prosperous farmers. But regarding the book, I think Black people accept these images and engage, and we talk about these characters and these images that are portrayed in the film simply because they're Black and we want to praise them. But if you read the book, it completely mischaracterized Suge. It completely mischaracterized Celie and their experiences. Because in the movie, Celie is basically living off of this man. In the book, Celie is paying all the bills. Suge is the one who is the successful singer, national singer. Suge is the successful businesswoman. She is the person who is actually pivotal in the way that her and this guy is living. And when it comes to Seeley, by the time Seeley comes back to town, Seeley is a world-renowned fashion designer. And those are not elements of the story are completely ignored to tell a different type of story and leave a different impression. What I charge Black people with is not just accepting those storylines, regarding The Color Purple, not just accepting that as something that people are giving, but look more into it. And when you have a conversation about it, speak about these aspects of these stories and these lives that are much more inspirational than the tragedy of Seeley's life, or the way that Suge went through that little rocky period. We have to expect more of ourselves, but we also have to reject things, regardless of who's portraying it. We have to reject them. No, you're not doing that. I'm not coming into that. I'm not engaging you in that type of dialogue. I'm not engaging you in that type of conversation just because you put a Black face up there. I mean, the new one it's on my list. When they first announced it, I was like, no, I'm not trying to go see that in this period here, where I know there's going to be a lot of pandering and a lot of preaching and not a whole lot of entertaining. And the timing is so suspect because you just want to put another Black face out there. And when I saw the previews was a little more encouraging. But I'll sum it up with this: expect more, especially when it comes to entertainment. Look more in depth than just the faces of the characters, just because those faces might be similar to yours. Look in depth to these stories, because within these stories there are very valuable lessons that we can draw on. And when we have the conversations, when we have the discussions, those valuable lessons can elevate the conversation beyond just Black and white, just beyond the dynamic of men and women, and into something that's much more inspirational. But I appreciate the time, Dana.
Thank you.
Dana, can I weigh in on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Arkansas, I hear you, and that was really, really succinct and true. But I just want to give you another perspective. You said that the male figures in your family were real successful farmers. And that's what I heard you say. Let me give you another perspective. And what if you have kids who are like me? I grew up without male leadership. Just basically, I'm a miracle. I was raised by the streets. When I got to grad school, I learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So what that basically means is, in order for a child to get self-confidence and morality, creativity, and acceptance, it's called self-actualization. The first thing you need is food, water, shelter, clothing. That's number one. Number two, you need health, employment, family, social ability. Number three, you need love. Number four, you need somebody to give you self-esteem, like a mama, daddy, uncle, auntie, whatever. Well, why am I saying this? I'm saying this is if you're a child who doesn't have the basics of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're going to look to TV. You're going to look to entertainment for those missing parts, right? So that's my theory why so many kids are like having problems right now. I mean, we talked about PsyOps earlier. These kids are looking to Sexy Red for leadership. They're saying, hey, this young lady is just like me. She has a history just like me, and she's very successful. Likewise with our young men and some of these not all rappers, but some of these rappers. Now, why am I bringing this up with respect to The Color Purple? With The Color Purple, you have a lot of kids and a lot of young adults who are looking to this entertainment for structure, and they're essentially being trained by this entertainment. So why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because it's not for a lot of people. For people like the history you brought up, you have a family structure that can say, hey man, no, that's not reality. That's not reality. This is reality. But for a lot of us, like me, when I was growing up, we're looking to entertainment for leadership, and these movies, these these music companies, they mislead us. I would argue intentionally. They program us because our need structure based on Maslow is broken. It's fractured. I'm gonna land my plane there.
Here's the thing. Hitler, Stalin, Goebbels, they all recognized that the American movie industry was the most profoundly efficient propaganda engine the world had ever seen. They studied it intensely and they tried to duplicate the effects in the Soviet Union and in Nazi Germany. For the last 100 some years, well, actually back 120 years, all around the world, youth have been guided in what is appropriate by what they see in movies. See, children and young adults model what they do on others and they try to imitate or emulate it. One of the worst things that happened to Black folk is not integration so much as it is we became a popular subject of the movie industry because they needed the cash flow to stave off bankruptcy, considering what was happening back in the late 60s. So they put stuff out that addressed the lowest common denominator. They were not trying to get us to rise above our circumstances. They wanted as many Black folk as they could to pay what they could get out of them at the box office. So instead of saying you're trying to deal with this young man who back in the late 60s would have been going to college if only to keep from getting drafted and getting a nice long vacation in the sunny Nam. He was staying in college. But they didn't talk about Black college students. They made Black college students look bad. And they started glorifying pimps, hoes, drug dealers, thieves, burglars, robbers, murderers, and stuff like that, so they could appeal to the widest audience and bring in the biggest amount of cash. And I saw things that they first started introducing as a proposition, and folk I knew growing up, we talked about this earlier: John Muir Junior High School, Manual Arts High School, Fremont, Dorsey High, Manual Arts. We didn't act like that, and we looked and we said, what the hell is this? And now, since I have had a lot of political science, that was my major at UCLA, and I specialized in propaganda. One of the things I learned with propaganda is you can tell when the propaganda is a success because the targets of your propaganda start using your terminology to describe themselves. And I see all kinds of so-called woke folk that take this extremely negative descriptive process that was very offensive to the antecedent young Black folk 55 years ago. And now this is how a lot of our youth refer to themselves. And now they think this negative thing is normalcy when it was not. It was induced, it was propagandized, and it was made all right. And it's a subtle thing. It's a not so subtle thing to get you to act like a fool, because what's being represented to you as this is a stand-up guy, this is how it's to be done, this is cool, this is all right, is essentially negative. So I noticed right now, I won $100,000 bet with some Paramount executives one time, $10,000 a piece with 10 of them. And I said, the next 10 movies that Paramount makes, I'll call the flops and the hits, if any. And I called it 100%. They wanted to know how I did that. I said, it's easy enough, because any story that you give out to humans has got to be something that says something about humanity. In high school and junior high school, we'd read a book in class, and the teacher's going, class, what do you think the author's meaning was? And whether you're talking about something that the shaman or the witch doctor told around a cave mouth or around a campfire out on the savannah or on the plains, there was a story. If it was a Greco-Roman play, there was a theme to it. If it was Shakespeare, there was a message that was to be conveyed. If it was a John Wayne movie, there was one. But this stuff they come up with now is just nihilistic, and this started off a half century ago where the black thing had no message. Black Caesar, starring Fred the Hammer Williams. The hero was a hitman and a drug kingpin. And he rides off into the sunrise smoking a big cigar in the limo after he killed off a whole bunch of people. Then less than 2 years later, you got Superfly on the thing where they glorify selling cocaine and pimp mobiles and pimped out. And folks started going from afros to processed heads again. And they started going from field jackets and jeans and boots to wearing platforms and bell bottoms. And you got this negativity that was becoming perpetrated because it looked cool. It was glamorous. And that's not what we needed, but that's what we got. And now we think of that as normal. It's not normal. It's dysfunctional. And we have made a half century of glorification of this function that's been spread to the rest of the Western world because they've so badly emasculated the public that young men all over the world want to see something masculine and they gravitate to gangster, hip hop, rap video because it looks like it. But what you're seeing with the half-naked babes bouncing around on screen is not some sex object of the rapper. That's his mama, grandmama, his aunts, and their friend girls. That's what you would see 1978, 79 out back of the projects in July where grandmama's half naked. She's 42 years old and she got all her butt out. Mama's got her boobs hanging out. And mama is 29 and dude is 17 hanging with his homies. And mama, grandmama, and all the aunts are trying to get laid and get knocked up to get a bigger check. But they glamorize that mess. That's not what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to glamorize being a hero, being a hard worker, being a provider, being somebody that stood up to wrong, not somebody that perpetrates wrong.
All right. Because it's like I was thinking I should have done it, and then you say something else. So I didn't want to be cutting you off. I want to go to X-Men. And Mimi, I did bring you up here, Mimi, but let me just say this, because I always got to do a disclaimer with you. It's 2024. It's a brand new year. I'm not into no New Year's resolution, but don't come up in here with the silliness. But I want to go to X-Men, then I want to go to a YouTube question, then I'll go to Mimi, and I'll come back up to the hands. Okay, so you had your hand up, then it was Immortal. And anybody want to request to come up, please do so. Go ahead, X-Man.
How y'all doing? Y'all can hear me?
Yes. How are you?
Good. Happy New Year. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Judge. I got much respect for you. I'm in Louisiana, New Orleans, and my comments, I've been hearing a whole lot. And I guess about the color purple, I guess the fact that I would like to begin with is that the color purple is a good example, but everything on TV now is like negative towards Black people and us coming together. But the color purple is a program, just like everything in the media is programs. We all know our brain is patterned, the computer is patterned after our brains. And you put programs on a computer and they put programs into TV to program us. So the question I ask is, what is the program and what is the message that they're trying to get out with the color purple? And you can see a lot of negatives with the Black men, a lot of negatives with Black women, but they use that it's like they want to, it's a lot of general stuff that happens to everybody. That's why an R&B rapper or singer can make a song and everybody across the country could relate to it because we all going through the same thing. So they use a lot of generalizations in these movies, these $1 million productions, and they trying to project a message onto us that most of us are susceptible to, like Professor Allen was saying about the school system, and Brother Immortal was saying about the psyops. Like all this stuff is tied in together from with the school system and the education, with us not being properly educated. The majority of us are ignorant, and we just watching these shows and being programmed by the images and the messages that the programmers want us to receive. And I just want us to look at the bigger picture with it. Like, just look at what's really going on. They're trying to program us to act a certain way. Like the judge brought up in the 50s and the 60s, they brought up the black exploitation films with the Superfly and the Meg. And then after that, you got gangster rap and everything to tear us down as a community, as a people. And in the 50s, but they're trying to break our families up. In the 50s, the black marriage rate was over 90%. Today, the black marriage rate is just around 30%. That's the reason. The purpose of it is to break up the black family, to break up black men from black women. That's why movies like The Color Purple, they always gonna portray the actors, the male actors, in an extremely negative light, and to make black women who all experiencing the same thing to feel some type of way because they all experiencing the same thing. But the crazy thing is, we was talking some Professor Allen was talking about how in slavery the master was raping the wives. I mean, raping black women, and that's how you get all these different colors of black people with the miscegenation and stuff. But the thing about it, we don't never realize is the white woman never said, "Oh, my husband a low down dirty bastard. He in there raping them black women. He was in there raping the black women and going right back in the
Oh, do
right
me a
back
favor.
in
Don't say the R word too much because this is being played on YouTube, and they
my
like, yeah, the algorithm gets sensitive with that word
my,
on YouTube.
my, my apologies.
Yeah, no problem. It's I just a little notation.
Right. But
Let me
it
add
was
something to your mix. I appreciate your points. You're right on point. But there is a dirty little secret that I heard discussed in the hallways of Paramount's administration. It ain't really about us. We are a surrogate. We are a proxy for what they're trying to do. They're trying to emasculate the country. Now, how this works is this: when you went in a restaurant or you got on an elevator last, what kind of music did you hear?
elevator music.
Yeah, but didn't it have Motown in it? And when those songs were live, brand new for Motown, you couldn't find them in mainstream America.
Right.
You had to listen to a black radio station in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, someplace like that. You just couldn't get them everywhere. Now you can. And see, white people listen to black music. White people think black men are masculine, the epitome of masculinity. So young white kids or young Japanese kids, young Chinese kids, young South American kids, they model themselves on what young black men do. So when they sissify what the young black men are doing, they copy it. And then when you have a 50-year period of you are glorifying dysfunction, and you are feminizing the male imagery that you have, including the one that's supposed to be most masculine, you've got a whole bunch of boys all over the world that don't know any better, that are trying to emulate the emasculated male that they put on American productions. You see it. They always now have something that they slide in to try and deal with emasculation, toxic masculinity. I remember 55 years ago, the first time I heard that, they were talking about they were going to propagandize the country, though the country firmly believed that masculinity was toxic. Now look at it. They had succeeded. So men are supposed to be low down and evil and toxic. So they start off by black exploitation stuff 45 years ago and 50 years ago. And you put in play this thing where black men exploit women, abuse women, pimp women, kill women, brutalize women, cuss at women, around women, and generally act a damn fool and don't take care of their families. And that becomes okay. You hear the language today. It's okay to do stuff that not even 20 years ago was looked at as negative. The propaganda works, and we become the stand-in where they use us as the exemplar. And because we're supposed to be badasses, all of the other white kids, yellow kids, brown kids, red kids, white kids that want to be badasses, they copy us. So when they've got us acting like creeps, everybody else gets that way because it is the equivalent of that elevator restaurant music that for the most part nowadays is black music.
Right. All right. I'm gonna go to Mimi, then a YouTube question, then I'm gonna swing back to Arkansas and Immortal. Go ahead, Mimi.
Okay, thank you. Hello, happy new year and all that good stuff. I just wanted to talk to Mr. Judge Mathis. Judge Mathis. When I hear, and I'm just saying this
on here.
Yeah, I already told her don't come up in here with that BS, and I just dropped her. So if you request to get Mimi, just to let you know, I'm not bringing you up. I told you I'm out on that type of time in 2024.
On here, you know good and goddamn well this is not Judge Mathis.
Right.
This is a full-grown, much older man, Judge Joe Brown, who started off before he did. So why did you even go there?
And I wasn't going to bring her
this
in.
Last time you came on.
Yeah, and I'm not like don't even come in my spaces. Don't even come no more with the judge spaces where he's at outside of this.
Man,
she always
what's
does
the
that.
matter with you?
I dropped her down. She requested. I'm not bringing her back up. I don't have time for that right now. I really don't. Let me go to YouTube real quick. Raheem says, how come The Color Purple was the only full black cast film that Steven Spielberg only directed?
Well, let me give you a question to answer that. Which person has won more NAACP Image Awards than anybody else?
Steven Spielberg?
Yes. His black wife is very influential in the social circles, so he wins a lot of stuff. That's like, guess who is head of the Black Caucus's Reparations Committee? Who's the chairman? From Memphis, Tennessee. He's the congressman for the 9th gay, white, Jewish Steve Cohen.
Right. So basically, so would you say that it's black people that put these white people in our culture in these positions?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're part to blame. Just like I think it's the parents' responsibility when your kid is looking solely to television, movies, or music for guidance. I'm gonna first put that blame on the parents, and then the industry. It's something that was going viral. A little girl and her friends doing karaoke, and she's singing to a Sexy Red, doing all that twerking stuff or whatever, word from word. Disgusting, and I think that's child abuse. So I'm going to put, I'm going to put mainly a lot of dysfunction that's going on in Black families in the community on Black people, and what's dysfunction that's going on in this country right now. I'm going to put the responsibility on the parents first, then Hollywood, then the government or whatever. So
look at the movie industry. Take The Equalizer. Now Denzel plays a good guy. He is a powerful man, stone cold killer, but he does it for the right reasons. But do you ever see him doing it for anybody Black?
well, there's no Black person in the movie for him to
Now,
say. They don't put a Black person in there.
And in the last one he has, which isn't a bad one,
Mm-hmm.
he went and he started the whole movie off because some person doesn't even know him, got ripped off by somebody that was in the Italian mafia. So he travels all the way to Italy to get this stranger's money back for him. And the man gets his money back and they don't even know who he is. But they could have just as well had him do that for somebody Black. But do you ever see that happen?
No. We don't have true Black heroes, I guess.
No. But I'm just saying, it's not bad for us to see a Black badass. But why is it the people that are delivering that to us have never written in the several chapters of this franchise anything about him helping Black folk out?
Right. Oh no, I totally agree. And just to the Steven Spielberg, it's like it's not wrong casting all Black, but look at how you are portraying the Black men in the movie. So how about do a movie portraying Black men with a Black cast of Black men being the hero, saving Black people.
Or if you ever seen, there was one that I really appreciated. He had nothing to do with it. This guy walked in and he murdered somebody in a bank. And this Black female lawyer, young, got hired to represent him. And it turned out his benefactor, who was a very rich white guy, paid the money, was somebody that this guy had helped out in World War II in Italy. So the brother took out an evil somebody that was a racist, and he also helped out a young Italian boy who was a kid at the time who remembered it and came through and saw that he got acquitted, or saw he got a good legal defense, which wound up with an acquittal. Interesting war movie, and you saw what was going on, which was a reality.
I want to go to Arkansas, then Immortal. And like I said, anybody else want a request to come up, please do so. And people that's already up here, if you want to speak again, just raise your hand. Go ahead, Arkansas.
Yeah, and I think the third movie, it was a young Black boy that the Equalizer was helping.
Which one
was that? Was that the movie? Was that the Equalizer? The one where he was living in the apartments and they came in and they tore. The hoodlums came in and tore up the lady's garden, and he had the young Black boy paint the mural. And
yes,
paid
that
him
was
some
in
money.
part 2. That was part 2.
And then
he became his mentor.
And then he went to so there are.
Yeah, but that was kind of peripheral to the bigger story.
Well, and I don't want to get off on that, but I appreciate that series. Now back to the.
I go see him.
Yeah. Now back to the professor's point, and it even speaks to what Judge Joe Brown talks about propaganda. See, there's no such thing as a Black community, but every other word out of many Black people is this Black community idea, this Black community concept. When my life experiences and so many other people's life experiences are absolutely reflected in the images that we see, but it's not necessary for me to form my own image of me, and that's what so it's important to recognize that fact. You have all these terms about when it comes to propaganda, the constant the constant repetition of Black community. Now you got this constant repetition of BIPOCs and ADOSs and all these other terms that really are contemporary. And they might be historical, but right now they've been popularized because they carry some weight and some value to individuals who don't have a deep sense of who they are as an individual. So they have to associate with these disparate groups who are identified by these manufactured terms. And I think it's very important for us to recognize that even when that manipulation might seem beneficial to an individual, it's not beneficial because it's destructive, because it takes you off of what you want to do. For me, when I look at movies, well, before I say that, the reason that so many destructive Black movies are being made and TV shows are being made is because so many people consume those movies and those TV shows. I could run down 10 movies right now that were released in the last 2 years that I dare say, well, and I'll go this far. I'll say nobody on this call would have seen that movie, or heard of that movie. And these are movies with very good storylines, very good characters, very inspirational stories, and the cast of these movies just happen to be Black people. And so when you seek out that rhetoric, when you seek out these destructive images, you have to own that, because you have to be accountable for the things that you consume. Look at the current Black-led film studios. You wouldn't call it a studio, you call it a production house. The current ones, what are they producing as far as entertainment? They're producing all kinds of degenerate behavior, hedonist activity, destruction, misogyny, rape, killing, and drugs. And there's not one of those individuals, even Tyler Perry, who deviated off into the area, not one of those decided that they wanted to make a movie. And speaking to what Judge Joe Brown was saying, Gordon Parks, his first film was The Learning Tree. And I would venture to say that not many people on this call, with the exception of Judge Joe Brown and probably Dana, because she just knows stuff, would know what the movie The Learning Tree is about. And these are inspirational stories, but Gordon Parks went from making The Learning Tree to making Shaft. Completely different world. The Learning Tree is set in a rural environment, family values, principled living, honesty, integrity, and then you go to Shaft, which is none of those things.
Well, wasn't Shaft a Black hero or something?
Shaft. You're right. I'm thinking of Superfly. I'm sorry.
Not Superfly. Shaft was the detective.
Yeah. Superfly came after Shaft. Shaft was the detective, and he was the hero in that black superhero, really, when it comes down to it. So those types of images, which was so very popular, and then this blaxploitation started being introduced because Hollywood, who has very little imagination, they're just glomming onto these images and these ideas that are presented.
Let me say something on what you put. Did you ever see The Spook Who Sat by the Door?
Yes, sir. I read the book. And I saw the movie, and that was the first movie that I heard about the Dayome, because you remember he told that the prostitute that she reminded him of Dayome, and she changed her whole demeanor.
Yeah. See, that was the kind of movie that was competing with the likes of Black Caesar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The spook who sat by the door, the plot line is the guy goes and joins the CIA and learns the spy, espionage, and assassination business. So this was very early on, 1966, 1967.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is he winds up organizing Black youth using what he learned in the CIA, so they became assassins, so they could get rid of the pimps and drug dealers and thieves in the Black community, and then take on the power structure and start a Black revolution.
Right. He actually sacrificed his life. But I want Arkansas to finish up because I have to get to the hands and to the new speakers.
Was the thing. That was different. See, and by the way, Superfly came before after Shaft.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Arkansas. Finish what you're saying because I need to get to the other hand.
Well, and I just want to finish up with some movies that you check them out. I enjoy these movies. Fast Colors. It's a movie about a family of Black women, and it's reminiscent of African mythology. The Photograph, Love Story, and a Gift from Tiffany, Love Story. I mean, these are very, very good movies. But I appreciate you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Also, yeah, the learning tree, that is definitely a recommendation. And I just want to quickly say to the professor, because you are a teacher, and anybody else that's listening that teaches children, even though the professor, you're teaching college, but if you're teaching high school, even younger, whether you're a history teacher or not, when it could be a day, one day or out of 2 days, show it to kids. And even if you teach kids on a weekend, an extracurriculum program, let's start showing our children and the youth those movies, classics. I love the learning tree. And it's a lot of life lessons. And it was actually based on Gordon Parks' upbringing as well. So I want to go to Immortal and then Twizzlo and Nigga Racy and then Love I Am. Go ahead, Immortal.
All right, I appreciate it. Oh, wow. The whole Sexy Red thing coming straight up out of St. Louis, Missouri. Wow. Listen, first thing is first thing. We have to take care of our women. As Black, for me, let me just speak for myself. I'm a warrior class man, you see? And so what that means is and now I have to live by a code. So if that means that I live, so now I said that, now I'll say this. I believe that we live in a system of white supremacy. I believe that. A lot of people say it don't exist. I love to debate people who say that. But in any case, whether you agree with that or not, that's my belief. And so for me, I can't, as a warrior class man, it's my job to shield the Black women from this system or any harm, even if it ain't no system of white supremacy, any harm. So I know for a fact that that particular sister didn't receive the shielding that she deserved as a young child. Some of y'all talking about a video came out, and here are these children, and guess what? She was one of them, you know. And so, but when she was dirt broke and fucked and messed up out here in the game, you heard of a $1,000 holler. One of my partners will say $40 holler. I'm gonna give her some respect and say $1,000 holler. She ain't no secret about how she run her game, but I'll tell you like this. Me as a Black American man, I'm not gonna come at her personally because I knew it was my duty to protect her, and this is where it led. She wouldn't have done this if she's not completely stupid, no matter what nobody think, or else she wouldn't have made it to where she at. And a lot of these people just don't judge people. A lot of times people, they want the mansion in Beverly Hills. Well, you know, or they want more than what they have. Well, are you willing to do a lot of different things. So that's how I feel about that. And the other thing about that, though, and the reason why I can take that attitude is once things go too far, like once Black American women, and sometimes there's a small segment that will go too far. They're very loud and they're very small segment. This is not your average everyday behavior for Black Americans. I done dropped my phone to make the point. What you see in that video with the little kids, that's not average. I got an 8-year-old. She don't know nothing of. She don't even know who Sexy Red is, and live in St. Louis. So that's not representative. But I will tell you this: whenever you see that, they're gonna force the Black American man's hand. The ones who, especially the ones who go off bravado. There's masculinity. A lot of us fall back on our masculinity, and a lot of us fall off back on bravado. But the ones in bravado, they're gonna be the first one with something to prove, and they're gonna act a fool once they feelings get hurt. I don't know how else to put it. To land that point, I'll say it like this: I seen young girls twerking on a police car. Police had showed up, bunch of Negroes hanging around, and the girls, they were being disruptive, unruly, whatever you want to call it. And the girls in the crowd jumped up on the police car. The police officers were so mesmerized by what they were seeing that they kind of stood down and let them do it. Now, in the meantime, you had aspiring warrior class men with a lot of shit to prove sitting around watching this shit. So it's a double-edged sword. When it was less than a week after that, we had they started moving buildings around and furniture around, put it like that. So that's the point on Sexy Red. Let's if you wasn't there for her personally, now what she do, and you talk about her business and how she run it, that's all cool. But for her personally, coming from my hometown, you wasn't there when she was like what did the rapper say, with dirt, broke, and pissing under a Bay Bridge, pissing under the Martin Luther King Bridge. You wasn't there. So, and nobody was championing her. And I'm here and I'm ashamed. So she did what you had to do. I landed with that.
Champion her how?
It should be no space for some of the things that Black American women suffer in the city of St. Louis. There should be no space for it.
Well, what did she suffer in St. Louis?
Well, I don't know her personally, but I know where she's from because I'm around here all day, and I see what women going before she made it big, what they were going through. And I know she was no exception. And I know there was a lot of hard times and heartbreaks. I can't tell you exactly all the
right. No. So the whole concept is she grew up poor, grew up in the projects, came from nothing, and she had to. So she decided, hey, in order for me to make some money, I need to be raunchy. I need to show my body, my ass, whatever, say the most nastiest shit, and be ignorant. And I make money and I can get myself and my family up out of poverty and walk around with a big pot belly, and have a baby daddy. But the fact is that, honestly, that's no excuse for all of the negativity she chose to put out there. You do have a choice. Yes, there's a lot of people that come from the projects and did not take that route, worked hard, and was able to get themselves and their family up out of the projects or just up out of poverty. So that's no excuse.
That's right, but every story is different.
Well, I don't care about her story, but this is the thing.
Oh, wow.
F her story.
Okay.
Because it's not me pushing back at you.
You gotta love each other at the end of the day.
No, I don't. Because part of loving. Wait, one second, Martel. Because part of loving, and get off the speaker thing, because I want to hear you clear. But part of loving someone is telling them that you're wrong for doing it. It's being honest. And you know what I'm saying? And the fact is that, no, I don't accept that. No, I'm not going to support you. So if you choose to do this to make money, I'm not going to support you. If you choose to sell drugs, I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to take your gifts that you're going to give me because you're making a choice. It is a choice. And that wasn't her only option, because if you had that option to become a rapper, you know what I'm saying? Well, you had an option to go to school and to work, save your money, move to a better neighborhood, save more money, buy a home, or how about you go to college, go and stalk around the engineering building and find you a husband because you know you're gonna make money. There were other choices. You made that
You
choice.
talking about exceptional people.
No,
Black
I'm not.
Americans
No, I'm
really
not.
do
No, I'm not.
do
No,
value exceptional
no,
people. What about the average everyday
no,
goofy?
no, no,
You
no,
think everybody's going to be exceptional? No, that's not how the
no.
world
I'm
works.
not. No,
And
no.
some of these people who are not as exceptional as me or you.
Wait, hold on. Can you hear me for a second? Can you hear me? I unmuted. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
We hear you.
I hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Go ahead, Immortal. You can unmute. Immortal, can you hear me, Immortal?
Could you hear me? Can I say something real quick? I'd like
Yes,
to
ma'am.
jump in
Yes,
on
ma'am.
this
I'm sorry.
subject.
Excuse me. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm listening.
Oh, no. I didn't know if you can hear me because, I mean, yeah, I'm going to come to you next, Twizzler, but my point is, everybody has a story. And so, and we also have a choice. And if you choose to be a degenerate, as in representing your Black culture, then the fact is that I choose not to support you. I choose to say, you know what I'm saying, you could do better and you should do better. But I'm definitely not going to support you. My kids will never know your lyrics or any lyrics of that. That's why I did say it's the parents' responsibility. But when I say F her story, because you had a choice to do something better than what you're doing. Just because you're making money being a rapper and you made some success, that doesn't mean you're doing better. It just means you choose to make money by being ignorant. I don't know what happened to Immortal. He dropped down. Come back up. And then I'm going to go to Twizzlo.
Yeah. I want to share something with you because this is a sensitive subject and I'm from this subject and it affects me very much because, as I said, I'm from Oakland, California. I was born in the 70s. So when I turned 5 years old, 1979, they took me from my mother. The child support agency came out of nowhere when I was in the hospital and they took me from my mother, and I didn't see my mother until I was 6. I didn't have no choice in the matter. Wasn't nothing I can do. They came back. We used to have social workers that used to come by the house every other month to check the house out, to check the refrigerator out. They would question my mother, what is this? What is that? Where'd you get this? Where'd you get that? They would go to our rooms. They would check our closet. My mother had to go through that for 4 or 5 years. And one day we got new carpet, so there was no furniture in the house. A social worker came in the house and didn't see no furniture in there. Next day, the police came and took me and my sister out of there. This was 1984, I think. I didn't see my mother again until 1986. Then in 1986, that's when the crack epidemic hit. When I finally got back to my mother, she was so grieving and stricken, she became a substance abuser. So boom, I came home to an empty house at 12 years old. What was I to do? I went to school, but can I get a job at 12, 13 years old? No. I don't have a family. It was just me, my mother, my stepfather, and my big sisters. And they was all gone because they all had kids and they all left. They all had to go fend for themselves. So it was just me at 12 years old. So what was I to do? You know, if it wasn't for my community, if it wasn't for the streets, if it wasn't for the neighborhoods and some of those pimp drug dealers and all that, I wouldn't be living here right now. And yes, I made my way up. I made my way out of there. I did what I had to do. Yes, I suffered. I became a victim of circumstances and I also became, but I still know the difference between right and wrong. You know what I'm saying? I became a chef. I became a garbage man. And right now I've been a chef for 27 years. And right now I'm a real estate agent. So that people have a choice and people could have did this and that. It wasn't like that in the 70s and 80s. You know, it wasn't no apps, it wasn't no programs, it wasn't people you can call on. If you made the wrong call, the motherfucking, I mean, excuse my language, the CPS, the child protection agency, the welfare agency, they came and took the kids about the home. So who was the call? And not only that, protecting black women, all my life, I had to deal with abuse, how my stepfather abused my mother. I had to watch how he beat my mother, and my mother would be crawled up in the ball. And back then, when they called the police, I don't think police would do it, tell them to take a walk. It wasn't none of that. He didn't stop beating on my mother till I got old enough to fight him off. What was I to do? Who was I to call? Hold on, let me finish. Because as I said, this is a sensitive subject to a lot of people. A lot of people fail to realize that a lot of Black Americans suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome because we all been through shit. So when people talk about how the hard times was, how the streets was, and the degeneracy. Sometimes that's all some people had to do. They didn't know nothing else. They didn't have no better. They didn't have family members to teach them to show them anything. You know, instead of I
Well,
know a lot of
so wait,
can
one second.
let me
Wait, no, one
finish. Let
second,
me
one
finish
second,
though.
one
You're
second.
not missing the point I'm trying
No,
to make.
I'm not missing a point. I get the point. But a lot of things that you went through, you didn't have a choice because you was a minor. I'm talking about adults.
You gotta understand, Queen. When a person is coming up, that's all they know. So by the
But you
time
have
once they become, can I finish? Once they become of adolescence, in our term of age of 16, that's all they know. And if you don't have anybody to teach you, guide you, or showed you, how you gonna learn?
where was your
I was
dad?
lucky. That has nothing to do with it.
It has everything to do with it.
Did you hear what I said? I was raised in a house with my mother, my stepfather, and my three big sisters.
Right.
They was all there. But when my mother lost us, what was they could do? That's how the system was back then. If it was one incident, one thing, if if the government, the county, or the city got notified of any missed things, they will come and take the child about the house.
I'm not.
These was in the early.
Wait,
Can I
one
finish
second.
though?
No,
You
one second.
asking me a
Listen,
question
I'm
and I'm
not.
trying to
No,
explain it to you, and it's hard for you. You won't understand unless I explain it to
Wait,
you.
no, because I'm not having a conversation of everybody's personal story. I'm asking you a question just to kind of push it along a little bit quicker, because the point I'm trying to make here is what happened to you as a kid. Yes, you did not have any control over that, no matter how traumatic that may be. But and I'm sorry, it may sound cold, but it is what it is. When you turn 18, because that's how I was raised. Nobody didn't. A lot of Black people did not grow up with a silver spoon, and if you did, your house could still be dysfunction. But as soon as you turn 18, no matter what habits you created, the choice is yours. And if you do continue, let's say you've been doing something that is against the law. One second, mute up for 1 second, because I don't want to like mute people because it's the delay. If you do something that is against the law because that's what you're used to doing to make money, then okay, that's what you did. But then you have to also take the consequences that comes with that. So if you make a choice to do something, accept the consequence. If you make the choice to become a rapper and to be an ignorant rapper, then accept the consequence of someone like me and others saying that your music is trash and you have no talent and you could do better. So if you are 18 and older and you're used to being in the streets and you get arrested, I'm not going to feel sorry for you because you were breaking the law. But when you get out of jail, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, do better. You should get a fair trial, even though our criminal justice system and the judge can't account for this. It do sentence, I would say, young Black males and Black men harsher than any other group. But you made a choice to do something to break the law, deal with the consequences, and then make a choice to do better. That's all I'm saying. Now, go ahead. I'm going to give you the last word, and then I'm going to move on to the next person. Go ahead.
Basically, what I was saying was the same thing Immortal was saying about Sexy Red. You know, when you growing up and as a young person, you don't have no choice. You're a victim of your circumstances, regardless to when you get 18, 21. My dad always told me, you ain't an adult till you get past 25. You ain't grown till you really in your 30s. So a lot of people have to go through life. And he always told me, your best teacher is going to be experience. But, you know, this is, like I say, this is a sensitive subject. And I see you're a little insensitive to it. So I'm gonna land my plane there and pass the mic. But
that's not fair.
sometimes
I'm
you
not
need to pay.
insensitive.
That was a little.
Insensitive.
That was a little insensitive. It's like you
How?
said. Like you said, when stuff happened, you don't care. You don't. You got to understand the circumstances and the situation. Like my dad said, there's two sides to every story. And you just looking at the picture and you see somebody
Wait,
getting
I
caught
don't care.
or going
How
to
do you
jail,
want me to
then that's that.
care? How do you want me to care, though?
Sometimes it's just not. Sometimes caring is just offering a helping hand. Sometimes caring is showing concern. Sometimes caring is understanding without judging. Simple as
Okay,
that.
so
But
I did the
I let it
understanding.
go. I'm letting it
No,
go,
it's
and
not.
I
It's
just want to pass the
it's
mic.
fine. You can let it go. But what I'm saying is, if I'm gonna show any type of empathy, it is yes, you have a story. I respect your story, and that's where it goes with me. And that's not me being disingenuous or not caring, because guess what? I got a story too. And I'm trying to keep my head above water. And I'm not going to sit up here and say, and I refuse to live my life as a victim. I'm not going to use what happened to me as a child to dictate my future. I would never do that. Right. But the fact is that you have a story. I respect your story. I respect what you're doing now as a man coming into your manhood. You know what I'm saying? And everybody passes path is different. And that's where my caring ends. Disrespecting your story. Immortal, you dropped down and you came right back up. You must have lost connection. I'm gonna go to you. Then just real quickly, I'm gonna give you the last word. Then I'm gonna go to Nigga Racy. Oh my God. And then Love I Am. And then the Liberty. Go ahead.
Okay. I appreciate you letting me back up, and yeah, I had fell out there. But anyway, listen, like I tried to preface before my statements, if any Black American women, if you are our people, I'll listen to you. I'm not listening to nobody outside of our ethnic group about any Black woman, including her. In St. Louis, there was a Black woman who was the bottom of the barrel, took all the wrong turns, made all the wrong choices. She was begging outside of a foreigner-owned gas station, and they got tired of just looking at her. Now, the Black Americans, we walk by. Sometimes we give them money, sometimes we don't. That's somebody's child out there. When they came out and kicked her and abused her, we issued, not we, but, the community. Let's just say it like that. The community issued consequences and repercussions. And it's going to always be like that for warrior class men. So what women say about other women, I think it do need to be women to safeguard womanhood in the Black community. And if it was an apocalypse, I would want somebody like Dana with that attitude, with that type of mindset, watching the daycare for the little Black American girls. But now we out here in warfare. Now let's go on to what I'm to try to paraphrase what I was saying before. It's not my place, really. Listen, I'm not trying to get biblical with it, but even Jesus didn't throw stones at hoes. Now she came out and said she hoe. She told you where she come from. You want her to do what you did. You want her to make the decisions you made. You want her to have the opportunities. Man, some like me, I come out the straight mud. 39209 Mississippi. So if you, and I can say a lot, just like Dana said, hey, I made this decision. I made that decision. I was a child soldier, but I decided to, save lives rather than take them. Did good doing that. So, but still a child soldier. So I could have went any kind of way, but I went the way that I went, and I'm proud. I'm glad I'm the man that I am today. So personal responsibility is a thing. But I'm also a expert at something. You know what that's called? That's called sales. I could sell you anything. Just give me 100 people. I'm going to make 3 sales. You get it? See, I just like to use my powers for good. But if you give me 100 people, I'm going to make 3 sales. That's how they look at it. I'll find the vulnerability in whoever I need to find it in. I'll look for it. I give you an example, and I'll land with this example so you can understand that people are being targeted. And they playing this thing by the numbers. You're looking at individual peoples and how they fail. Some of us gonna fall to the munitions of the enemy. And this is what they use: psychological operations, psychological munitions. So I sure hate that I couldn't finish telling you the thought that I had, but I won't waste your time by trying to remember it right now. But just suffice it.
If you remember it, just raise your hand. I'll swing back to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm gonna go to Nigger Racy, then Love I Am, then the Liberty. But I don't disagree.
One quick remark.
Right. Let me just say something. 3 seconds. I don't disagree with Immortal and Twizzlo. I don't disagree with you. It's just that for me, I look at it 18 and up. There's no more excuses. That's just my mentality. But if you want to say something else, just raise your hand. I'll swing back to y'all. Go ahead, Judge, and then I'm gonna go to Nigger.
Let me make a brief remark. 40 years ago, I probably represented as many pimps and hoes in Memphis as any other lawyer around here. You got P Valley out there, and where they're glorifying this thing with the strippers down there in that part of Mississippi. I actually had clients that danced down there. Many a time, one of my whole clients would ask me to help her get away from it. And I'd always tell them this. I said, baby, I can't help you as long as you stay on the whole track. You got to come off of it. As long as you're on the whole track, it's bad. Now, to an extent, one of the problems that you had to deal with when you were actually dealing with real live hoes is there was a certain glamour that had been attached to it that you saw come into effect late 70s, early 80s, because they'd been starting to glamorize being a hoe with the black exploitation stuff and some of the uh, flip sides of some of the records that were out. Still had records. Everything wasn't a tape or a CD. And the problem is like if you want to have a good community, you've got to tell the young men over and over again to act like a man and protect your community and provide for it. You've got to tell the young women over and over again, act like a woman, act like a lady, take care of your children as best you can, try to keep things in order. But you have somebody who glorifies being a hoe, and the young girls that need to hear the positive message get the negative one where they watch somebody make a lot of money, get a lot of attention, glorifying dysfunction. Now, 55 years ago, Hollywood never would have allowed that for white women or black women. Now they do. You can see this effect by what's happening right here. We were talking about it earlier. Dana said, please don't mention that word because this comes out on YouTube. 55 years ago, they censored pornography and obscenity, but you could say anything you wanted when it came to ideas. Now, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, they will censor the devil out of you for ideas, but you can have all of the porn and obscenity you want. You're on X and you can get some very, very full on, great graphic porn. They send it to you all of the damn time. But you can't talk about ideas and have a free exchange. Well, does anybody get the idea that there is an over effort to glorify dysfunction and what impact that has on the black and the mainstream community? Now, with that said, I don't care what Sexy Red gets. She's got some obligation to her people not to glorify dysfunction, to encourage another young girl to deal with what she's putting out, to emulate it and ideate on being that way. Because with the money she's making, she does not have to be a hoe. And it is cheapening to black people in general because when they think of a black woman, too much of the image is a negative one where that starts creeping in, and that's wrong because that's not black women. But we don't need these sisters dishonored, disrespected, and put in a position where they're made super sex objects, even though they might be church going type, might be good mothers, might be women who have professions or are involved in business or in trying to raise homes. We don't need them set up to be trapped into being looked at as something that is a sex object any more so than necessary. So we don't need butt naked Lizzos. We don't need sexy reds running around trying to make black women look like hoes. It's their responsibility to uphold the race. And that is not. That's like somebody going out and trying to sell the race out if he's a male, trying to be a house Negro if he's a male, or being a bootlicker if he's a male, or going around talking about you need to pimp your women if you're a male. That's not being a man. So we need some woman We need some man in the equation. And emulating and glorifying being a hoe or a harlot is not good for the feminine side of black people or anybody else. And being a punk, a sissy, and a pimp is certainly not good for the male side of black folk or anybody else. So I'll pass the mic on that. That's an observation.
Can I have just a quick interjection? Just real
Who
quick.
is this? Oh, Professor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, 30 seconds because I really got to get to the other two new speakers. Go ahead, 30 seconds. Yeah,
got it. And I would argue that most of us in America, in the black community, particularly in the Southeast, have that story of extreme poverty. That's my story. But I've done a quick analysis on our rappers. I'm not talking about Sexy Red in particular. I don't really know her story, but a lot of rappers who are promoting and artists who are promoting this violent, guttural lifestyle are rich kids. I am my plane.
Thank you.
Comment on that? One particular rap artist that is extremely famous and very successful was an A student all through junior high and high school. They chose him to integrate a previously all-white high school because he was so smart. And his mother had a master's degree working on a PhD. But he's got street cred because that's what he does to sell his songs. I've represented a few. I've counseled with quite a few. And this thing about street cred does not always match what they're about. So you're exactly right on that.
Nigga Racy, and then Love I Am. Nigga Racy, you can unmute.
Nigarachi.
Oh, Nigarachi. That's what it. Okay, Nigarachi. Nigga, unmute.
Sorry about that. I'm glad the young lady was able to realize that pronunciation well. I want to thank you for allowing me to be on the call today. I have a couple of points that I do want to discuss, but I preface that discussion to something that I've realized myself being a Black man in America. I do appreciate the two brothers that preceded me in explaining their experience and the challenges that they had to endure, as well as the action that they took in life to be where they are. But I believe that there is a huge cloud of victimization within the African American community. Just because you are born in a particular environment, raised in a particular environment, currently in a particular environment, does not make you have to deter to the prominence of activities that are conjured in such environment. I myself was raised in several projects, from Liberty City in Miami to some projects here in Atlanta. And I always had within my household, and more importantly within myself, a determination to not be like that. I abhorred the practicality of life that was demonstrated in those areas. The idea that there was three generations of people living in subsistent housing, and for lack of a better term, the ghetto, from grandma to son to grandchild, and the prominence of laziness, not wanting to go out and explore and find something to do. It is extremely true that the society at hand is not progressive in the sense of Black people being able to grow and to provide and do wonderful things, but that does not dictate our success on an individual matter. It scares me when people always just rest on that idea. Well, hey, I got it out the mud. I'm from this particular area. I had to bang this particular sad, or I had to get into selling drugs, or I had to prostitute, or I had to pimp. Those are options that you chose. They were not the only options, but you might have been blinded by the fact that there were other opportunities because you might not have been exposed to them. But going back to what Dana said, once you hit a certain age, and to be honest, I don't think it's just only 18. I think once you get to the idea of your place in life and your ability to affect change within your life itself, you have the duty to employ and implore different strategies to make yourself better. There are tons of stories from the gentleman who the movie The Pursuit of Happiness is about. I believe the brother's last name is Gardner, right? To many people in business that did not grow up in the greatest of circumstances. Tavis Smiley grew up extremely poor, right? And they found ways to do better. A big part of that is culture. Being where I was growing up, a lot of the kids around me would make fun of me because of the way I talked, or the fact that I actually cared to learn about different things. And I just took it as a joking situation. But now that I'm 15, 20 years outside of that reality, I can look back and see where they are in life and how their mentality has trapped them in a box. But that doesn't mean that they themselves cannot change and not be better people, because you have examples. Malcolm X was a drug dealer. He was a burglar. He might have even gotten into pimping, right? But he was able to change his life around and make changes to better himself and to change his upcoming generation. I just want to say that part. Now, getting back to the subject at hand, which is The Color Purple, I myself am not interested in watching that movie. I didn't think we needed another Color Purple, to be honest. I think the original did enough damage as it is. What I wanted to talk to you about and possibly get some light shined on by the honorable judge is what happened to the Renaissance period in Black cinema. I had an opportunity maybe about a decade ago to meet Robert Townsend, a director who did a wonderful litany of shows and movies, and a lot of them were positive. I remember Parenthood was a positive show. It was a comedy. I remember, of course, The Cosby Show, or some other works that the great brother Bill Cosby did. But during that time in the 80s and the 90s, there was a push, I feel, to really impact cinema, both on the silver screen and on the golden one, in a way that showed Black people not as just your Sanford and Son or your good times, right? It showed a light that actually exists. And I would like to know from you, Judge, what do you think happened in that particular situation as to why we may have a BET, or it bothers me to say this, but a revolt, or many other avenues to show a light for the intelligentsia in the Black American community, the wherewithal, the entrepreneurship, and most importantly, the idea that we can be better people by showing others that we are better people.
One thing in response to what you're saying is that we don't really control much, with the exception of John Singleton and what's the other brother that did
Spike Lee, could it be?
He did a lot of stuff that Wesley Snipes was in.
Mario Van Peebles.
Not Peoples, no.
Okay.
No. it'll come to me. I'll make an exception with those two because they always try to do stuff that's got a conscientious message, but they try to destroy them. You remember Malcolm X, the movie?
Absolutely.
That movie was a monster. And I used to sentence some of my probationers to watch the movie if I didn't think they could read too well and could read the book.
Mm.
Over and over, my chief bailiff and I, him in uniform, would visit the local theaters around here, and we'd see these huge lines of people going to see Malcolm X. And I'd go down the line, what are you going to see? Oh, Judge, we're going to see Malcolm X. Let me see your ticket. And it would say Beauty and the Beast. And I'd get the 4 or 5 people that I had sentenced. I see you in, and yes, Judge, let me see your ticket. It'd say Beauty and the Beast. And what would go on is to cheat these black directors, they would issue tickets that said Beauty and the Beast. So every time somebody gave one of those tickets to the stub takers, that was being shown for audit purposes that somebody saw Beauty and the Beast, not Malcolm X. So Malcolm X did okay, but they had huge lines. I was even down in Houston one time, and I went through the line that way, and the people had all of these tickets for Beauty and the Beast. So Walt Disney was a beneficiary of fraud. Beauty and the Beast didn't have that many people. It was a huge number of folk that saw Malcolm X. Now, see, they'll do in somebody like that. But the rest of the people that they promote, for the most part, what they're doing now is glorifying dysfunction and emasculation. And we aren't the ones that are financing it. And the people that finance this stuff, and I won't get Dana upset because it would go over poorly with YouTube, are all of a similar persuasion. And they utilize us and they call us the N word where they talk about us at a bar in a 5-star hotel. They called us the N word and they badmouth Farrakhan and Malcolm X and anybody black when they talk about us. And they get very upset if you even mention something that sounds like a slur to them about them. So just remember, we don't control this industry. It is a money-making proposition that every now and then allows something to come out that is not too horribly glorifying of dysfunction. Now, slightly back to the old subject, people can escape. You mentioned Malcolm X coming out and learning to read and memorizing Webster's dictionary. I recruited Bunchy Carter, who was chairman of the Black Panther Party for Southern California, to UCLA, because when he went in to do prison time, he had been running a gang known as the Slossons. This resulted in him going to prison prior to the uprising in August 1965. Well, he was illiterate, but he memorized, just like Malcolm did, Webster's dictionary unabridged, and he became a poet, which is why I recruited him to UCLA. Also, somewhat later, one of my number one paying hoes that was one of my clients working for one of the worst gorilla pimps in Memphis, she wound up deciding this wasn't the right thing. And I won't mention her name because she is a practicing clinical psychologist right now. And
Wow.
she saved a lot of women from hell because she got her PhD. And she put to the use what she learned. And there's some interesting things about how that whole pimp whole game works. And I'm going to digress for about 30 seconds, Dana, just to explain it again. A pimp can't turn a woman into a hoe, but the preacher can. People have a need to be accepted as they perceive themselves. And if they perceive themselves in a negative way, then they want somebody to accept them for that way. They grow up in church environments where the preacher tells mama, grandmama, aunts, and friend girls that they're no good, low down sinners. They're going to hell but for. When they sell $5 more pie or cake at the bake sale, they get stood up on the pulpit and recognized. When the pimp tells them they're dumb, stupid, and ugly, they believe that, and they tell the guy who is talking about she's fine and beautiful, he's just trying to get in my panties. And yeah, she's going to sell them to him. And when she sells $5 more nookie for the evening, then the bottom hole, she gets to walk in with the pimp. And the pimp just recognizes a woman that has been conditioned to respond to negativity about herself. So when you get somebody like Sexy Red, when you get somebody like Lizzo glorifying that, there are all kinds of dimensions of self-hate that are getting pushed and fostered on young black girls that are really sick. Now, I got this idea working with this one that became the PhD, and we sat down, and I remember when she was working on her master's thesis and then her doctoral dissertation. And we went into the mindset of hoes and pimps. It was an amazing dissertation that she came up with. And it shed a lot of light on what was actually going on. So when you get somebody that gets into dysfunction, there is always the opportunity to escape upon application. But there is always an easier way to accept it and refuse to do something that's causing you to hate yourself worse every time you do it. Every time. I got into a situation where I had a lot of strippers I represented. I was on retainer to several strip clubs. And one thing I noticed is if I had 100 strippers and I had a lot more than that as clients, there was a really weird thing going on. 95 of them were lesbians. Three of them would go both ways, and two of them out of the 100 were straight. And maybe 4 or 5 in there would keep their own money instead of giving it away to somebody. So they hated themselves and they got deep off into it. One of them I saved, and she died of cancer, but she was wound up a school vice principal.
All right.
But you see, you can't escape if you decide you want to do better. You don't have to stay where you are. So I don't like it when somebody glorifies this dysfunction and say, hey, not only stay there, but go there in the first damn place. That's bad.
All
I
right.
agree
So
100% with you, Judge. Thank you for the time.
thanks.
Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
I want to go to Love I Am. I see you, John, requesting to come up. Give me a second. Go ahead, Love I Am.
Hi. So, thanks for the space, Judge. This is a great conversation, and it's one that's very relevant to me. Judge and I'm sorry, Ms. Dana, of course. But I was actually on the phone with my friend the other day, and we have a 10-year age difference, and we were having a conversation, and he said this line from a movie, and then it was a movie that I have not seen. So he was like, "You haven't seen Boomerang?" Boomerang is the movie by
Eddie
Eddie
Murphy.
Murphy. Huh?
Eddie Murphy.
Absolutely. Yep. And Boomerang came out in 93. So I was born in 91. But I was gonna say that what I have noticed is that this is an attack on our lineage. Um, I saw why they would want to um, thwart the success of individuals who have the ability and capability to produce um movies like that. I noticed that the Black American has this creative ingenuity that is unparalleled. And our films are full of um creativity. Nuance is a element of our film production that I love, is that it's um highly nuanced, nostalgic, rich in culture, a lot of soul. Um all of these elements that I don't see other groups able to duplicate. And so I noticed that with the movie Boomerang, it seemed to me that Eddie Murphy had a significant role in the production of that film. And it was positive, and I see why it's a threat, why they wouldn't want these images out, because it's full of the women are bad, cold, like cold. And this is with the Black American films that came out during that time. Our women are gorgeous. We are still gorgeous, but they don't want that on TV. The men are handsome, regal, um, masculine, um, all things positive. He was an ad exec. They were successful. It just exuded Black American excellence, Negro excellence is what I was getting from the film. It's reminiscent of many films that I have seen produced during that time. And even one thing I like about Eddie Murphy is that he actually takes and uses uh actors and actresses, and he uses them in multiple film production. And I was watching, I was like, wow, they really don't want us to see ourselves like this. They don't want us to see ourselves like this because in the uh in the system of capitalism and white supremacy, this is competition. And so I'm looking at what is put out now, and it's like we were talking Sexy Red. So Sexy Red gives me um agenda vibes. Like I don't she does not resonate with me. It literally reminds me of the movie They Clone Tyrone whenever her beats come on the radio. And so I see that they're trying to uh put these low vibrational uh productions out, sound, media. They want to bombard us with low vibrational media and just see who latches on and consumes it. And so what I do like is that with this lineage based movement that we have, I just hear a lot of Black Americans who are rejecting the imagery.
Shit. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Oh no, it's cool. I thought you were gonna
Somebody,
chime
no,
in.
no. So I was trying to bring somebody up, but then they dropped down at the same time, which led me to mute. Okay, sorry about that. And you was on a roll. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that yeah, I see a lot of us rejecting it. So what I see is that to me it looks like they in every industry, it seemed like that they wanted to get ahead of what could be. They wanted to stop things before it influenced in a positive way our community. And it seemed like they wanted to limit the amount of see, because it's not they could put out a movie like that today and it's going to generate revenue, but it's going to generate revenue for the creative mind that comes up with it. So if you have um and it's like a lot of these, like Tyler Perry is someone who's been bought, you know, and sodomites, they run Hollywood. So they literally they are not producing things unless it has some type of sodomite agenda. Like I just watched a show called The Blackening and it was funny. It's on Stars. But at the same time it made spectacle of what is blackness to me and to people in our community. And so I noticed that um the only time they want to show black culture is when it's negative, degenerate, and when it can be made a spectacle. And but I totally understand why it's a game that they're playing, because when I watch Boomerang and I watch these other films, it's just like, why would they want to see? Why would you want your enemy to shine? Because that's what would happen inevitably by watching these films. Because I really was impressed by that Boomerang movie. And a lot of these movies are good today. They're still excellent films to watch. I know people that only watch those type of films because what's out right now doesn't even resonate with them. I'm just kind of rambling, but thank you.
If you would love me to interject right quick, sorry, Judge.
1 second, because I wanted to say something. 1 second. Did you see the new Color Purple, Love I Am?
Hell no, I'm not gonna see it.
Did you see the original?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me say
okay.
something about the Boomerang. It came out in 1993. 1998, 5 years later, I had an argument, a very heated discussion with some of the feminists who worked in the studio that had my show. And this is what they had to say about Boomerang. It's like oh, by the way, that was Spike Lee I was thinking about, along with John Singleton. But in any event, they were upset that Hollywood wasted the money on Boomerang. I said, why? So, well, what was the point? It was just ordinary middle class people with black faces instead of something black. I said, what makes you think that black folk don't have middle class experiences? Well, we needed to see the poverty side of things. Everybody black ain't poor. Well, I don't get you. Why would we want to be seeing black middle class professionals and their little things, which are just like white things? Well, did you ever get the idea that it's about humanity?
Yeah,
And
and it was a love story.
yeah, and they did not get it. And by the way, I will say that is very true about the feet. Some of us look at the feet. Feet are a very great turn on when they're pretty, and a very
It's
bad
sexist
turn
and it's
on when they're-
misogynistic. He was,
Yeah, well, that's all right. It's a
and
bad
okay,
turn
for the
on.
record, Eddie Murphy character was a misogynistic pig. He was a whore, but he was fine, and he got his act together at the end.
Yeah, well, anyway, ugly feet are a turn on. I will tell you, I like pretty feet. Turns
Okay,
me
but
on.
you want to
Anyway,
dump someone because her feet isn't pretty, her toes is not pretty?
I try not to look.
Oh
But
my
just
God.
like he was doing when he pulled the covers up, said, oh,
It never called her again, ghosted her.
yeah,
He
I know.
was a jerk.
Well, you know what we used to say.
That was very
You know what we
realistic.
used to say back then, and it was widespread in 1992, 93, 94. If she doesn't take care of her feet, she ain't taking care of something else either.
You understand me? Yes, indeed.
Yes. Okay, well, I don't want to get into the Boomerang
Them toes
conversation,
explain
but
everything. They
let
explain
me,
hygiene, well
yeah,
care,
but
self care.
let me say this. Let me say this because I don't want to get into the Boomerang conversation. But that particular movie, I need mute your mic. Yes, it's a feedback. That particular movie, I love that movie because that took place in New York, and growing up in the tri-state area, we seen that like that existed, right? And then we talk about white people with their microaggressions and even a subtle racism and blatant racism that when you encounter those racist white feminists. And then two, and remember Sex in the City. I remember that came out, I believe, in 98 or 97. Mr. Big, that was the same type of character that Eddie Murphy played in Boomerang, where the white feminists didn't say shit about Sex in the City. And the reason why Sex in the City was so successful because you had black, white, Asian, all types of women can relate, especially if you grew up in the city, metropolis, especially if you grew up in the tri-state area. Like, you knew and ran into or dated a Mr. Big, the jerk, the asshole, the sexist, or whatever. So it's funny, and to your point, Judge, you being in Hollywood, you firsthand got to witness and talk to people who blatantly said, we want to see black people in these poor, violent roles because the other roles of being, middle class or upper middle class and educated and sophisticated and beautiful and classy doesn't exist. And then or try to say, oh, well, he's a sexist or misogynistic way he treat women, but you never say it about your white counterpart who plays these characters, i.e. Mr. Big. I want to go to Liberty, then John, and then Lashanta.
If you allow me just to say this right quick, I just wanted to touch on the
30
idea
seconds.
funding,
30. Okay, you got 30,
absolutely.
30 seconds. Good.
So the idea that the funding is what's limiting us being able to control what we have on TV. Well, what about Nollywood? What about Bollywood? Nollywood is in Nigeria. It is bootstrapped. It is how they watch their own content. Why can't we, with the technology that we have, with the infrastructure that being the internet, produce and push a different narrative as opposed to just going through the traditional Hollywood? Cable subscriptions are going down. People are not watching movies as much as they used to be, especially people in my age group. Why don't we push that light and that access and that route to changing the narrative?
We don't have the money.
Yeah.
If you go to a movie, let me ask you to do yourself a homework assignment. This movie you go to, when it starts, look at the number of studios that are involved, because today one studio can't afford to finance a movie. When one studio makes one, other studios buy into it, and depending upon what they put in, particularly on distribution and advertising, they get stuff. I got so goddamn pissed off at Paramount and Viacom because they took $280 some million that I earned 40% of, and they stole it to finance 2 Tom Cruise movies for leverage. See, they steal from you in a minute. So you got to pay $150,000 out to get an audit, which you have to wait in line 1.5 years to get that. Then they start offering you a better deal that you can go for, or you can go back and say, I'll just wait on this, but you might wait 10, 11, 12, 14 years. Now, right now, you've got a scene. Anybody remember So You Want to Be a Millionaire?
Good.
Okay, they jacked the cast and crew around. ABC and Disney got sued. The plaintiffs won. ABC and Disney appealed all the way up through the state Supreme Court in California, went through federal court. They wound up losing. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said, we will fix this. Although the plaintiffs asked for about $8 million to be split between them, this industry does not understand the first rule of American contract law, quote, that all parties are expected to deal with each other in good faith. Therefore, we will fix it. So what they did is they awarded the plaintiffs $580 million. Right now, that judgment's worth about $1.5 billion because Disney and ABC have not had the cash flow to pay down the interest. What they did to pay down the interest, to show you where the money comes from, is they came out with Black Panther, the movie, and then Wakanda 2 specifically to get the Negro money so they could pay off an interest requirement that the courts put on them so that the plaintiffs could not levy and attach the property. Most of the rides at Disney World in Florida, Orlando, and Disneyland out here in Anaheim, California, most of the income goes to pay off the interest. So we went and flopped to the movie houses, and we made Black Panther the highest box office success in superhero history.
Okay.
And we bought up ticket after ticket because we wanted to see ourselves. And I won't comment on the thing other than to say the final scene in Black Panther was the men and women of the tribe trying to kill each other in armed combat. So what is that for us to be looking at and cheering on? And when you listen to what Killmonger, the villain was saying, he was actually saying what Stan Lee had Black Panther saying 50 years ago, who was supposed to be a revolutionary, not some tight-wearing junkie, fame junkie who was controlled by the women in the tribe. So they bought into a game plan and assessment of black folk. They looked at it. What will black folk likely buy? How do we get the maximum amount of money out of them so we can save our properties from getting foreclosed on?
All right.
So that's how they work it.
I
They
want to go.
depend on us for cash, but we don't have that immediate access to the money. Nigeria does, Bollywood does, because their circumstances are different.
I want to go to the Liberty, then John, then La Shanta. I see 2 people requesting. We got 30 minutes before we come up on a 3-hour mark. I will also put in the Jumbotron Judge Joe Brown barbecue sauce. So go and purchase your barbecue sauce, and I'll put it in YouTube chat as well. Real quick, because I did see a super chat come in on YouTube from Just My 2 cents. Thank you so much. It says, Dana, if this was a black woman, you wouldn't be so dismissive. Please let him get his story out. And that was from earlier. I guess we're Immortal and Twizzlo. No, if it was a black woman, I wouldn't be dismissive at all, because I'll be giving it to black women on Twitter Space and everywhere else. Don't get that twisted. I don't do gender favoritism. All right. So who was the Liberty? Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Dana, and thank you, Judge Joe Brown, for having this space. And so the topic at hand is the color purple. I saw the color purple when I was a little girl, and my uncle took our family to see it. He probably didn't know exactly what was in it, you know. And I guess I'm a little different. Even as a younger person, I saw that movie as an attack on black men, and really the promotion of something unnatural between black women. That being said, no, I don't think we need to rehash the movie, but if Oprah is behind the movie, I think she's a producer. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. What has Oprah ever done for black people?
Want to get cold-blooded about it? The person that made Oprah's money was a guy named Roger King. His daddy invented television syndication.
Absolutely.
He was a big white guy, a pro football player, a lineman. He was an all right guy, loved his whiskey, and we used to talk. What happened is Judge Joe Brown went to his section where he had Oprah and Phil. And he discovered Oprah. He discovered Phil. And he was the one that invested and made her money. He said, you can do a whole lot where you don't have to take credit for it. So with working with him, Judge Judy and I were beating Oprah and Phil every week in the ratings the last several years. And Judy and I were flip-flopping between number 1 and number 2 for daytime syndication. But he died suddenly at 69 years old. And after that, when they got him out of the way, they just flipped things down. So Judy went firmly number 1 behind what they wanted done. They did not want a straight black man to be the number 1 TV show in the country. Now, most people don't even know that. They have a thing you can still find on Wikipedia. They said I was the highest paid man in Hollywood, black or white, outside of Leslie Moonves, who ran CBS. Now, I say that with that perspective, but again, they certainly don't want a Judge Joe Brown to have that status. They'd much rather have somebody who is an actor rather than somebody that was dealing with real world. But I say what I say with that circumstance.
All right. Anything else you wanted to say, the Liberty, or you just wanted to ask that question?
Oh, well, it was a rhetorical question. Oprah has not really done anything for black folk. I'm not saying that she has to do something for Black folk, but she's not really done anything. And I wouldn't anticipate her doing anything to promote the elevation of our race. You know, even when she started her school, she started it in Africa. Okay. And yes,
Yeah.
you know, we have Africa in our DNA, but we're here in America. She, rose to fame out of my hometown, Chicago, right? And did she decide to give anything back to Chicago in terms of education, in terms of school? No. So what I'm trying to communicate here is I would not expect the color purple, the new one, to glorify us in any manner. I would anticipate it to further our demise. That's what I would
Mhm.
anticipate it to do. And one thing I like to say is, and I can say this because I'm Black too, I think we hold on to victimhood too much. Um, Myself, I was raised in the projects, similar story to some of the people probably on this panel, but we are some of the most creative people on the planet. Even the question of, can we produce something? Can we produce a movie? No, we can't do it because we don't have money. I don't believe that. During this time here, this internet time, these internet streets, we can promote ourselves. We got Judge Joe Brown's barbecue sauce right up here. I'm gonna get some. Um, we could do our own commercials. We can engage in our own self promotion. We have more uh six figure makers, high six figure makers, more millionaires, more billionaires than we've ever had. And now we can't do. I just don't agree with that. From people like Annie Malone, Madam C.J. Walker, A.G. Gaston. These people coming right up out of slavery time, and they were able to produce. Even when I was a little girl, Miss May's Deli, right there around the projects, owned by a Black woman, the candy store on the corner. You know, Somehow we have to go back, maybe in time, and see when Black folks really didn't have nothing, but they were able to make something out of nothing. We can do. We just choose not to. We choose not to. If Sexy Red can do, she can get up there and make a fool of herself. But this is America. If she wants to do that, she can do it. It's up to me as a parent, because I am a parent, to,
Mhm.
guard my children, talk to my children. And we don't take enough responsibility. We can do a lot, and we choose not to. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. I appreciate you,
Let me
Liberty.
say one quick thing
Um,
about the money. You're right in one sense. We have the talent and ability, and we've got people that can do everything from top to bottom. Problem again is money. You've got banks financing this stuff. You've got insurance companies getting involved as an investment. And as I said, if you look at the opening credits at a movie, you'll see every single movie you see will have more than one or two studios involved. We have had feelers, the Blacks in the industry, from Saudi Arabia, for example. They've got plenty of money, but a certain other ethnic group always blocks that. And they rely upon the U.S. State Department and some other things to do things about that. So the money's not available.
are you talking about Jewish people?
Remember, we're on YouTube.
I don't. This is the other channel though. Just say yes or no.
Yes.
Okay.
So anyway, the bottom line is there's finance available, but we don't seem to have the political clout to do anything about it. And the other thing is that Q in LGBTQ, which stands for queer and questioning, too many people who might otherwise do something have been questioning, and they're compromised, and they aren't ready to be brought out of a closet, so they keep their mouths shut.
All right, I want to go to we have a few more speakers left. John, Lashanta, Prime, and King Jabbar. And I don't let me correct myself, not Jewish people, Zionists to be correct. And I want to swing back up to Love I Am. I see her hand up. Go ahead, John. John, you can unmute. John, going once, going twice. All right. Lashanta or Lashanta. Am I pronouncing it right?
It's Lashanta.
Lashanta, okay.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in your space. As far as I go with The Color Purple, I will not be seeing it. It came out in 1985. I was 13. And of course, my mom said it wasn't age appropriate and I couldn't look at it, the original one. Fast forward a few years, I'm a senior in high school, and we had to read the book to graduate from high school. I grew up in Memphis. I graduated from Whitehaven High School. And needless to say, the book was depressing to me at 17 to even have to read it. I grew up in the projects off Horn Lake Road, and across the street was a cemetery, New Park Cemetery. So you got the projects on one side, and then you got the cemetery on the other side. So it was like no hope. And then you're reading this book that they described as gutsy and feel good and all this stuff. And it wasn't. It was none of that. So I turned around and I decided, okay, let me look at the movie. And I looked at the movie, no avail. It wasn't any better. I just looked. Now that I'm older at 51, I view The Color Purple as a movie that shows the harshness of a black man. The reality is it domestic violence? Of course, it's domestic violence on men and women's side. But I feel like it just dogs the black man so bad. Like it's no success. Only way the women can succeed is to have their feet on the necks of black men to make sure that they're failures. And I don't like that concept. I'm a boy mom, so I absolutely don't like that concept. And I just feel like they could have let sleeping dogs lie with that. I don't know why Oprah felt like, well, I know why she rebooted it because of money, but I don't see the need of it even being rebooted. I didn't even see the need of it being on Broadway as a musical. It's so many other things that we need to expose our young children to that they're not being exposed to. It's a lot of culture in the South that people don't see. You hear the South and you think of slavery, but there's so much other culture to that. It's different inventors. You have Ida B. Wells out of Holly Springs, Mississippi. You have different people. You have Tom Lee Park that was named after a slave that saved several lives off of a sinking boat. So you have different things in the South other than poverty and domestic violence. And I feel like that's all that is promoting. And we need to start putting more positive things in our children's mind, because if you put garbage in it, garbage is going to come out. But if you put positive things in it, then you have a more, chance of them being successful and doing positive things. And when I say successful, I know everybody's not going to be a millionaire, a billionaire, but you can be a decent human in society. You don't have to go to school. You can go get a trade and be just as successful and, contribute to your community in a positive way instead of a negative way. And that's basically all I want to say. And I thank you for the time, and I land my plane.
Thank you. You know what?
Hello, let me say something on
Wait,
that.
let me say something real quick.
Yeah.
You're probably one of the only ones that actually read the book. And I also heard the book was actually banned back then in some schools or some places or libraries. So yeah, respect to you for reading a book. People don't even read no more. And I wouldn't expect people to go back and read the book.
Let me
And
say something.
I wasn't even
about that.
finished, Judge.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, I'm trying to say
Go ahead.
that she read the book in high school, and going back to the education system, and Professor could speak to this, that's what, the education system needs to start doing, reading novels. So go ahead.
What I was going to say is, ma'am, thank you for being from Memphis. At the time you read that in high school and saw the movie, the late Dr. Barbara Cooper and I were trying to keep that from being required of the students because of its anti-Black character. So we were trying to keep it from being required in the schools. But you wound up having to read it.
Yeah, but why would you do that? Like, I would be against that.
No,
Yeah, I
because
had to read it in order to graduate high school. I had no other choice, and it was very harsh. The scenes of abuse. I'm a very when I read something, I can picture it. So the scenes where there was abuse, it stuck with me. It resonated with me to this day. The over sexualized lesbian scenes in the book, it stuck with me to this day. I feel like no kid at 16, 17 should have even had to read that book.
That's what Dr. Cooper and I said. Dr. Cooper, the late Barbara Cooper, Representative Cooper. And that's what we were saying, but they were making you kids read that crap, and it was being extremely negative in terms of its impact.
Let me throw this question out there, because there are schools that they have to read Moby Dick. You read books about, the Revolutionary War. So it's okay to read books when it comes to war and killing and stuff like that. But that I'm not saying that, oh, you should like the book. No, because she read it, and this is what I'm saying. You read the book, and then a movie comes out, and then now you see what we have today, right? LaShanta has she could break down The Color Purple better than most people can, because she didn't see this current movie, because she was able to read the book, see the movie, and you didn't see this one, but your concept and your breakdown of it would be different from someone like myself. I saw the original. I was about 10, 11. I didn't really know, you know what I'm saying? And then now I never read the book. Fast forward, and now you have this musical, right? So reading a book does give you a different perspective. And like, she walked away with.
Okay.
I was going to say that she walked away. She said it was depressing. She didn't like all the lesbianness stuff or whatever. But what I'm saying is, we should not ban books, whether you dislike it or not.
We didn't say ban. What we said was it was not age appropriate.
It's not judging. If I may weigh in, I read it in college, and the first friggin' page of the book, I'm not gonna say it on recorded space, but the first page of the book, like the first line out the book, is about statutory rape from Celia's perspective. She says, first Mr. did this, then he did that, and it's very, man, I wish y'all could look it up. I'm not gonna say it on a recorded space, but it's like, first, basically she's saying, first he raped me this way, first raped me that way. So
it was very descriptive. I just don't say the R word. It was just very descriptive.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think it should be banned. I just think it. I wouldn't mind.
So what if it was 12th graders? Because what she was describing, which is the R thing, right? The sexual assault. There have been teenagers who that happened to. So it can trigger. Now, again, but to Judge's point, it is I get your point, Judge, as far as the age thing, because
it was required. That was Dr. Cooper.
No. Let me finish. Let me finish my point.
Okay, that was all I was gonna add. Go ahead.
But the fact is that if it's 12th grade, maybe a little bit 11th, but definitely 12th graders, I don't have a problem with that. But when you're talking about what we see today with the LGBT and all that gender stuff or whatever, to kindergartens, to grade school, got a problem with that. That's not age appropriate, because that's not even sex education, so that's my point, basically, if it makes sense.
No, it makes
Um,
perfect sense. It does.
um, One second. I had a list of the order. Oh, Primord or Prime. I'm just gonna say Prime.
Hey, thank you, everyone. It's good to be in this space, and thank you, Honorable Judge, for your experience and wisdom. I think there's a lot of you all touched on some really good points over the course of the conversation about the subject matter and the themes. I think it's kind of like it kind of falls right in line with like the political season. I think there's a lot of climate where different groups and communities, LGBT, I think all these different groups are sort of latching onto films like this and themes like this. And I think Oprah's sort of pushing this. So I wanted to know what your thoughts are as we sort of head into this interesting election cycle. You have this push for like this matriarchy, the Black matriarchy, and this sisterhood that kind of at the you know you know at the destruction of the Black male and his image and all these different things. I want to know what you all thought about that. And specifically for Judge, with all your expertise and experience in the entertainment industry, I think about, empowerment and solutions. So like from your perspective, what do you think we could do that's more solution oriented within this internet age, even though we may not always have the finances or things like that, at least from a perspective of like an independent creator? What do you think we can do in that regard? And thank you all.
Make the damn thing a flop. Don't go to it. Don't encourage them. See, I am firmly of the opinion that this movie was released at this time precisely because of this looming election. And just like you said about the diminution of the stature of Black men in favor of what the Democratic National Committee is doing about totally snatching any participation of Black men in the process and throwing it over on the other side. It was released and is of a nature where it seems to be glorifying lesbianism. That's somebody's business in the bedroom. Don't care. That's their business, but they're pushing it. And also to make Black men a boogeyman to distract again from some of the issues. I think it was released at this point in time to help out a certain cause. Now, that's my opinion on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. King Jabbar.
Yes, that's my name. Hello. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm really appreciating this conversation. I walked in 45 minutes ago, and I just caught on to what I was talking about. I just want to say about the color purple. I saw the color purple when I was very young. I was real young. I was like 7. And my mother, well, my family, let me just say my mother. My mother was ratchet, so she didn't really she just let us watch inappropriate things like The Color Purple when we were young. My sister was very young too, because we 5 years apart, so she had to be like 5 or whatever. But we watched that movie over and over and over again. Me and my sister watched that movie so many times. And my sister was she was highly intelligent, so she read the book very young. And I didn't know. I asked her about the book. I wasn't reading that well around that time, but she was more advanced than I was, so she read the book. She was reading it every day, and she was telling me about it, and I just didn't understand how my mother let her read that book. But she read it. She was probably I want to say I was like 12 and she was like 7, something like that. But um I thought at that age The Color Purple was a very good movie. It captured the Southern traditions and things like that. And I really enjoyed the bond with the sisters. Like it was like really a sisterhood, and it was just like a bonding moment. And it just touched a lot of things for me that I saw in my family too. However, I don't respect Oprah Winfrey. I think she's a part of that this new movement going on, the Me Too movement. I think she's really behind it, and she's pushing that agenda with a lot of other Black celebrities that are pushing that agenda too. So I really can't pinpoint all of the women that is behind it, but I feel like she's the head of it. However, I don't respect Oprah no more. I used to love her until I found out a lot of things about her, how she tried to destroy the legacy of Michael Jackson. I was really done with her after that because the man was dead and she didn't have no type of remorse of what she was doing and how her and Gail treated R. Kelly, you know what I'm saying? And Monique and so on and so forth. And Steve Harvey as well too. She's an asshole. However, I wanted to say this. I wanted to speak on when y'all touched on about the Black Americans. We don't have any I think y'all said something about film, not films, but production for Black films. And I know this is kind of cliche and kind of cheesy, but the Black exploitation, the NAACP stopped that. Cicely Tyson was behind that. She helped destroy the Black exploitation in the 70s when that was bumping. I mean, it's a video on that how they stopped it. The NAACP really was against it. They said it was really making the Black culture look bad, and I don't understand because that was what was going on in that time. You had Bumpy Johnson and all those people back there running numbers, and you had the pimps and the hoes in California and shit. But I just don't understand how they just X that out. NAACP just X that out. It wasn't, it never existed. It was just it was just gone forever. And then you got Nollywood and Bollywood just, they promoting the same type of, cult, the same narrative that, well, I'm not gonna say Bollywood, but I'm gonna say Nollywood. They promoting the same type of narrative that the Black exploitation movies were. They talk about the prostitutes, the men running through all these women. They talk about supernatural things like voodoo, the Yoruba religion. It's the same thing, but over here we just got X'd out. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, appreciate that. Love I am. I thought you wanted to say something else, but you had dropped back down a listener. All right. So I think that's good. We're coming up on an exactly 3 hour mark, 3 hours. And I think that's a good Twitter space because I get tired really after 2, but you need that extra hour so that everybody could get a chance to speak. All right, there you go, Love I Am. Go ahead. You're the last speaker, Love I Am.
Dana, you are such a great host. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, and this was actually my original point that I had wanted to make. So, when we're talking about, this is what I was taken from him giving his nuanced perspective, on his, or his anecdotal perspective of his life, is that our community, because of, I feel that white supremacy has literally catalyzed every issue within our community. Economic deprivation, economic disenfranchisement, and even when we're talking about the hood and stuff, these are concentrated areas of poverty and they are by design. And so what I've found is that our community, we don't have safety nets. So I think what people are speaking on is the fact that one mistake can change the entire trajectory of your life. And you compare that to other communities where they have safety nets where they can afford to make those mistakes, we can't. So I do understand Dana's position that we have to take responsibility for our decision making. But it is no coincidence that they purposely subjected us to this trauma induced reality. And when we're talking, I always think of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so if at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs sits self-actualization, then I can see where white supremacy has affected us on every level: physiological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, and esteem. All of those things that keep us from actualizing as people. And part of self-actualizing is that creativity, morality, and they want us to be concentrated on securing resources, trying, like, even the desperation of these people who they're just trying to get out of poverty, so they're signing contracts and they're literally signing their soul away. And now they have to do the agenda of these sodomites that govern these realms, not these industries rather, and realms, actually, that was applicable. Now, with that being said, I see that in the our media and in our movies. I'm seeing where, like, in the 90s, you see Black people who had their souls and spirits intact. You see that creative energy being able to show through. And I would say you see a representation of self-actualized beings, beings who understood that we had power, beings who understood that we are unique, set apart. But what I'm seeing is that they have literally they've just had this onslaught of attacks to our community so that they can get us away from that frequency that's naturally ours. And so now when I see the films, it's like all I can think is like it just seems like people just sold out. Like it seems like everyone has just sold out, and we're just so far away from our original frequency. I'm not seeing self-actualized beings. I'm seeing people who responded to a system by capitulating and putting out what someone is demanding from them, telling them, trying to police, like, you can't produce creative. Like, I was driving home yesterday, this is my last point. I was driving home yesterday and a song came on. I was like, what? Why is this a song? Like, I just had to turn my radio off. Like, we can't produce more. We can, like, I hear so much better than this from everyday people sitting around rapping and going off of those creative vibes, that I can literally tell that they do not want us to get our true frequencies out there, because it would totally shift this reality. And I noticed that the self-actualized Negro, I say this, the self-actualized Negro is actually the greatest threat to white supremacy, in my opinion. And to my initial point, which is why I can see that they had to get ahead of what hip hop could have been. They had to get ahead of what these movies that were produced in the 90s, the film production, they had to get ahead of all of that because they wanted us right where we are today. So now we have to make informed decisions about what our future will look like.
Question. Would you give me an example of white supremacy?
Absolutely. And I'm actually going to use the Maslow hierarchy of needs that I reference. So at the bottom of Maslow's chart, now every human has a desire to actualize, but what self-actualization looks like for a melanated being is actually different than a white person. Because we are
Why?
because we are created different. We're different.
We are.
Yeah, and my thought process is actually I have a belief that Black man, Black woman, Black child is actually the highest manifestation of God in the earth. And so with me having that understanding, I understand why they would need to see with the Maslow's hierarchy chart. So when I'm thinking of self-actualization, I'm thinking of all that a group of people can become. So I'm seeing where the self-actualization of a Negro is a threat in a way that the self-actualization of a Chinese person is not going to dismantle white supremacy. But I'm literally seeing where in this nation, we had self-sustained towns and communities, and we were literally outside of this codependent relationship that they've actually kind of forced on us. And so I'm seeing where it is a requirement that other groups, when they come here, they have this willful, they are willing to capitulate, they are willing to assimilate, and their actualization does not dismantle white supreme, but ours does. And I'm seeing that with the creative art forms. I'm seeing it in our literature. I'm seeing it when we get in spaces and we occupy spaces, we just do it differently. So when you're asking me what is white supremacy, I will say that white supremacy is this construct or belief that white people should govern society. And so what that would look like is them controlling our ability to access things, physiological needs: air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction, safety needs, personal security, employment. So safety needs would be personal security, employment, resources, health, property. The next level of Maslow's hierarchy is love and belonging. They want to be able to control what friendship, intimacy, family, and sense of connection looks like for us. And they even want to get in control of what esteem looks like for us, which is
Can I weigh in? Can I weigh in on that just a little bit? That's my area.
I hope
If
so.
you don't mind.
Let me just say this and then I'll be quiet
Go
because
ahead.
I'm just a person on Twitter. But
No, you're right. You're 100%
yeah,
right.
but I can see where, so esteem is the level right below self-actualization. It's respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, freedom. And the thing is, all of those levels, I can see where this system has literally kept us from being able to secure those needs at every level, from air, water, food. Like literally, George Floyd, they literally cut off his air. Like they put a knee on his neck and cut his air off. So
That isn't what killed him.
um I'm not saying it is, but nobody should be able to put
I'm
their,
just saying the person
yeah,
that
I'm
killed him
not
was the
saying it.
fat cop that came along and
Just
put
say
the
this,
knee in his
Judge?
All right,
back. But
TJ, get with it. Let her finish,
Go ahead.
Judge.
That's not my point. The fact that you're able to walk around without someone putting their knee on your neck, but we live in a system where someone can literally cut off your air supply.
No, but the point is, I know how to kill somebody trying to do
Yeah,
that,
I
or
just want to
kill
say
somebody
this.
doing it. No, the point is this, and it's a very important point that this generation seems to have forgotten. What happened to George Floyd? George Floyd could have prevented if he had taken the time during his life to perfect martial arts. He could have killed the cop very easily. He was 6'5". The cop was 5'9", weighed 140 pounds. Now, that is a shame. That is the skill of the warrior that is lacking. You
Right.
see, I
And okay,
I did what happened to
that's not
George
my
Floyd to
point.
somebody
I
50
shouldn't have
years.
mentioned him. It's
But
like there's
no,
a
Yeah,
no,
I
psyop in
don't
our
listen. I don't
community
want to
that's
talk
been.
about George
no,
Floyd.
I
I
I
want
was
don't.
gonna
to make a
say,
point. I
but
want to
I
ask
don't
you a
want to
question.
use that example because
No,
it's
I
like
Yeah,
do want
mentioning
to ask
that
you a
name just
question.
puts a whole psyop in
I want to ask
operation,
you a
and that
question.
wasn't my point.
I want to ask you a question. If somebody is killing you and you've got nothing to lose, because if you don't do something, you're going to die, what are you going to do about it? Sit there and endure the death, or are you going to fight back?
I believe I would fight back, but I
Well,
literally
why
don't
didn't
want
this
to.
6'5" tall man fight back? Somebody was only 5'9", weighed 100 pounds less than him.
Perhaps
cop.
because it was a police officer and there was some appeal
Oh,
to
I've
authority.
seen many a throwdown in front of cops.
All right, I
I've
don't
seen-
want to talk a fuck of
I'm
George
not talking about
Floyd, and
that.
please,
I'm
no,
just- no, I'm-
anybody else, don't bring up George Floyd ever in
No,
my
no, no,
space
no.
because he
I
wasn't no
mean,
hero.
I
Let's get
shouldn't
off
have
of
even
George
said that.
Floyd. Let's
Essentially,
get off of George Floyd.
what my point was is that
Okay,
as
go
far as Maslow's hierarchy of needs is concerned, as I just expounded upon, I believe that there is a system that has actually got in the way of us being able to secure every level of this chart all the way up until self-actualization. So I can only conclude that they want to limit our ability to be able to self-actualize because they've gotten into every area that's on this chart, from physiological needs to safety needs to love and belonging to our esteem. So the only conclusion that I can make, because this is a theory that's universally accepted, and every human has a desire to self-actualize, but I can visibly see where there is a system here that has been a direct impediment on our ability to self-actualize. So I can only draw two conclusions. Our self-actualization is a threat, and they want to do everything in their power to prevent us from self-actualizing. So that is what white supremacy is, in my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, now what do you do about it?
Take authority where you have it. When you're raising your children, you raise them by your standard. When you are educating your children, you raise them by your standard. And I mean community standard, but ultimately, because I already acknowledge that self-actualization looks different for us, then I want
Why
to,
does it look different for us?
because we're melanated beings.
What's
And so
that got
what
to
I'm
do with
saying
it?
is that when I'm raising, because I told a white girl, I told my coworker Erin one time at my job, I said, because she kept saying this dumb shit to me about how her daughter, she has a little white girl that has a big butt, and she's telling me how the black girls are jealous. And I'm like, Erin, your daughter is 7. That's a projection. And I was like, I don't see where they would be. I just don't relate to that because I was once a little black girl and I know I wasn't jealous of people having butt. That's a projection. But I told her when I raise my children, I raise them to understand they have a flesh, a soul, and a spirit. And so I'm always trying to speak to their spirit man. Now that's what I told her. And do you know what she said to me, a white woman? She said, you know what? She's like, us white women, we don't raise our kids teaching them that. We don't teach them about spirit. We just teach them, and she just broke it down to me, and I can tell, like, I mean, it's very obvious. So like it's certain things
I
that
think what he's
important
saying,
to us.
Do you have any Native American in you?
Not that I have been able to
Do you
discover.
have any children?
Yeah,
How old are they?
I'm not willing to disclose that on this app.
No, well, the reason I'm going to ask you that, you can keep it to yourself, is please sit them down at your kitchen table because there's no white supremacist on the other side of it. And if you make sure they're grounded in this homework for the next 12 years or 5 years or 6 years, they can get anywhere in life they want to and nothing can hold them back.
I'm doing it, Judge. Can't you hear it? Can you hear my frequency?
I don't know.
I encourage
but
Black
I'm
people to get in
saying
spaces
this.
and listen to people's frequency. I live that. I do that. I literally, I don't teach. White supreme
Are
is
you
a
talking
logical
about her, Judge, or are
fallacy.
you talking about that's something that Black people
That's
in
what
general
everyone
need
should
to
I'm talking
do?
about Black folk in general. My
Yeah. My kids are going to
experience.
learn white supreme is a logical fallacy. There are 0 physiological benefits to having pale skin.
Okay, look. Well, I'm not worried. What I would suggest is worry less about white supremacy and understand adversity. There was Simba out there. There were bear out there. There are all kinds of things that can do you in the real world, and that's called adversity. Humans have a thing called xenophobia. That's a fear or a dislike for the unknown or the unfamiliar. Racism is but one version of it. Anytime you are alive on this planet Earth, you will be dealing with some version of adversity. Instead of focusing on white supremacy, just deal with be able to be prepared to handle adversity and conquer it. Now, I will tell you that right now, my sense of foreboding with white supremacy is very, very, very minuscule compared to what it was 50, 60 years ago for a number of reasons. But I might have more of a problem running into some Crips, Bloods, gangster disciples, traveling vice lords than I would running into a white man. I'm not afraid of white men because I took my lifetime to make sure that if the shit hits the fan, yea, though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I fear no evil because I'm the baddest motherfucker in the goddamn valley. And if I'm not, somebody is going to pay some consequences if they put it to the test. At least damage gets done. So it would be in everybody's best interest not to deal with you directly, which means that when they got to deal with you remotely, it's just same old human beings have been dealing with somebody on the other side of the mountain in the other valley. Now, there is white supremacy, but it's not the be all end all. And what it is again, just adversity. And remember, we used to have to kill Simba when we were 13 years old if we were boys with a wooden spear. So we can handle adversity. Just think of it that way.
All right.
If I could wait.
Go ahead, Professor. Go ahead.
If I could wait, if I could weigh in on that.
No. Love, I am. I'm gonna have you respond, but Professor been waiting for a minute, and I'm gonna have you respond, and then we're gonna close out the space. Sova, I see you, but we were supposed to really close it out 10 minutes ago. I'm just letting this conversation flow out. So go ahead, Professor.
Yeah, Love, I am, and Your Honor, I think you're both of you are correct. Actually, we both can be right, because what the judge was saying is basically, if I can interpret. He was saying focus on what you can control, because a lot of us go crazy focusing, the whole alcoholic prayer, Lord. Well, I don't know it, but help me to know what I can control and the wisdom to know the difference. I don't know it, but I'm paraphrasing. But so he's right, and you're right too, because Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom. Think of Maslow, the pyramid, like a building. The foundation of the building for a lot of us, a lot of Black Americans, is just destroyed. So how are you going to build a roof if the foundation is destroyed? Safety, and how are you going to get to self-actualization if you don't have the first floor? So both of you are right. I wanted to, y'all brought up earlier The Color Purple, the book, and I was at a loss because I didn't want to. The first page was so explicit, I didn't want to say it on a recorded space, and people hear it and get misconstrued. So Dana, I sent you in the what do you call it? The messages. I sent you the first page of The Color Purple, and hopefully I could shed some light on why.
Thank you. Okay, I'll read it after the space. Okay.
Yeah. So why Judge was saying like, oh no, that shouldn't be read in high school. But I agree with you. I think it should have been read in high schools in like a 12th grade honors English with a disclaimer, because it's just sheer pornography. But this has been a good discussion. Lastly, I want to say I published a book while I was teaching at the College of Education at Lemoyne that addresses a lot of the problems. If y'all have kids in the school system that want to know more, you have African American kids that want to know more about their history. I took Tennessee State Standards and addressed them with Black scholars. So it's key to Tennessee State Standards, and you can find it on my webpage. I enjoyed y'all tonight, and hopefully we can do this.
I appreciate you coming in this space. Actually, let me follow you, and listen, people that come up here to speak, if it's something that you're doing that you want to promote or whatever, put it in a jumbotron. I don't want trolls putting stuff up in there. And also put it in a comment and talk about it. So yeah, I appreciate you highlighting that, because we need to take the education outside of the schools. And they don't really teach kids in schools, and they never did. Schools were actually created by the private sector so that kids don't work in the mines and shit like that. When they started passing child labor laws, they had to put the kids somewhere while the parents went to work, and that's how the school system in America was created. And I think the Rockefellers had something to do with it as well. So the whole idea of school, it really should be coming from the parents and not the school board. But yeah, and like just saying with you, Professor, I agree with the judge and I agree with Love I Am. She broke down, white supremacy, very detailed. But just the counter is like what the judge said. Okay, what is the solutions? Because what I'm hearing in a whole bunch of spaces is their focus on the problem, white supremacy and the institutions. To me, white supremacy is the institutions, because white supremacy could be someone of a different hue, in a different country. You look at India or whatever. So I don't focus on white supremacy. I focus on what needs to be done. And that goes to the judge point of adversity, overcoming it. But too many Black people today, this is not you, Love I Am, too many Black people, whether it's on Twitter or in the real world, we were raised and that message has been embedded. And just because my grandmother and the generations before that had to deal with it, it keeps being passed down to us. And what's missing is the actual solutions, the organizations, and the action that needs to be taken place. Because with all these illegal migrants coming in here, it is to replace Black Americans. We already don't have no money. So, and that's going to be for a whole nother space. And I definitely want to talk more about the effects of white supremacy and the solutions, maybe next week, if nothing else isn't trending. I think that's a good conversation to have. And this is another disclaimer. Please don't ever nobody bring up George Floyd, funky drug addict ass. I don't give a shit about George Floyd. I don't want the judge, please judge, don't talk about what happened, what didn't happen. I just don't want to talk about that. He's dead. I just want to talk about him.
I want to say one little remark to throw in here as a loop. You know what is disappointing me about this white supremacy talk is 50 years ago, white people were more afraid of Black folk than Black folk are white folk now.
I don't think white people are afraid of Black people.
No. I read the congressional record. I was on the ground. This is what they were afraid of. They thought we were smoldering and we were like somebody's campfire that wasn't put out in the woods because there was a danger of it burning the whole thing down. And we had a phrase, it's called burn, baby, burn. And the average white person was a lot more afraid of the average Black person in the 1960s than Black people are. Well, it's reversed the other way around now. We talk about is white supremacy. Back in the 60s, all you could hear was militant Negroes, militant Blacks, militant Afro-Americans. And what are they going to do? And to a great extent, the entire panoply of civil rights was predicated not on some people on their knees getting their ass whipped until somebody felt guilty about it, but from burn, baby, burn. Now, I had the occasion, and I've said this over and over again, it needs to be made clear. I was with a DC think tank years and years ago, and we went over the congressional record. We found maybe 5 or 6 pages out of more than 60,000 that said the civil rights demonstrations had something to do with the Civil Rights and the Voting Rights Acts. Everything else was talking about Black folk were burning down the American cities in a systematic way that they equated with what the Army Air Force was doing in Nazi Germany in World War II. That's what they said they had to do something about, not peaceful folk making somebody feel guilty. Now, I'm not advocating anybody go do that. That wouldn't be appropriate for a retired judge. I'm just making a historical observation. Mm-hmm. Now, we don't understand what consequences we can vest. And for some reason, this glorification of dysfunction we've been talking about for the last 50 years has also included a big dose of convincing us that we're helpless. And I think there has been an intentional input into our psyches to be afraid of white people. They aren't anywhere near as badass as they used to be. Trust me on that one.
Well, Judge History agrees with you because during the Nixon administration, Nixon was recorded as grabbing the guy who just died, Kissinger, and saying, "Henry, if you don't stop them, they're going to jump over the fence and get us." So Nixon recorded that.
Yeah. See, what happened to us? We used to be the badasses in America. Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis, Jack Johnson, in the ring, Jackie Robinson, you know, you name it. We were the baddest when it came physical. We didn't have to worry about somebody jumping us. Maybe you had to worry about the Klan, which the Klan was scared as hell of the militant black folk in the 60s. You know, and now all we talk about, white supremacy. I resent that as a man. Like, screw it, bring it on. Let's do it.
Well, can we table this
Yeah.
until next week and pick this up? Because this is like a whole. I mean, of course, I'm glad it came out of this topic, but let's go deeper with the white supremacy conversation next week, Tuesday. And I know you have your hand up, Love I Am, but I'm tired and I don't know if I got a headache because of low sugar. I don't know, honey. But I'll give you 10 seconds.
Well, Love I Am, I like what you say.
A rose is still a rose by any other name. You can call it whatever you want. The elements are still the same. And so we are dealing with something that has affected us at all of those levels. And obviously in different in various degrees, depending on the individual. But the thing is, white supreme is a logical fallacy. So if you want to call it something else, I agree with you. There's nothing supreme about them. I was never indoctrinated into white supreme. Perseverance through suffering establishes character. Our people have a notably distinguishable character because we have persevered through our suffering. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what's going to happen, come out of this lineage-based reparation movement this year.
All right. I don't know who wins the contest of being the most long-winded, Love I Am or Judge Joe Brown. Y'all tied. I'm sorry.
Well, I have 30 seconds to say. I have 30 seconds
No,
to
no,
say.
Love
One
I
more,
Am, because honey,
just
you
one fifth,
wait.
make it 15
I am, Miss Dana.
Make it 15 seconds. Here's my other real problem with talking about white supremacy. Every other group of men I have encountered, and the black men that I knew, we'd be talking about whipping somebody's ass, not running from him. And what has happened is the dialogue in the black community is changed from we're going to whip some ass, 1967, 68, the 70s, 72, etc. Oh my God, what are they going to do to us? Okay. And that is a fundamental shift in outlook. And I think it's poison.
Right. No, I was going to say, yeah, because Love I Am, she read as a dissertation on white supremacy. But
I like Love I Am.
Yes, I know you do. I know, because she's detailed. And thank you to Professor. Thank you to all the speakers. Great speakers. Thank you to everybody that's listening. Everybody on YouTube. Judge, say hi to people on YouTube, honey.
Hello there. Happy New Year.
Yes, and the people who donated, thank you so much. That was just my 2 cents. And go buy Judge Joe Brown barbecue sauce. You can get it on Amazon, Judge Joe Brown barbecue sauce, or go to the website jjbbbq.com. Barbecue sauce is delicious. But next week Tuesday, yes, we will talk more about white supremacy. So if you're available, Love I Am, please join us. And everybody have a wonderful evening and the rest of your week, and Happy New Year. And Judge, please close us out.
Hey, it's a new year. Resolve to kick ass and do it for the right reasons. I by and gotta go. This has been Judge Joe. Call me when you can, since I'm the one that ran.
Peace out, Frat.
There you go.